This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Huss and Reem with you. We got a packed show today. The latest on multiple coaching searches around the National Hockey League. We'll hit that with Brandon Rewucki and Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun. Kind of focus in on what's on the Jets' plate right now and where they go from here. Obviously, we'll get into the playoff action last night in the NHL and look ahead to tonight's game. And we'll also look ahead to Blue Bomber training camp, which gets going on the weekend. John Hodge from 3 Down Nation is going to jump on with us in the second hour of the program. We'll get his thoughts on the upcoming Bomber camp. And, I mean, we'll definitely get into the big story in the Canadian Football League, which is the Argos handling of this Chad Kelly situation, which is really sort of blown up. A number of respected female members of the Canadian Football League, both the head office with Christina Constable, individuals such as Rayam Arku with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, speaking out publicly against the handling of the Chad Kelly matter. And for Michael Pinball Clemens, who spoke yesterday, a guy that probably has as much goodwill and rope as anybody in the CFL, using up all of it and then some with the way the Argos, boss spoke about the issue. So we'll get to that a little bit later on with John Hodge as well. Of course, we'll have marbles. But we have marbles as well. Going to bring in a pal of the program, Jeffrey Bannon, to talk about a Labor Day tour for Bombers riders that we're going to be involved in. I'll actually be hosting one of the buses, so stick around for that. But a lot of hockey talk, a lot of coach talk, and of course, we'll get to the playoffs in both the NHL and the NBA later on in the Cool Bet lines. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, shout out to everybody listening on the podcast. Thanks so much for making us a part of your routine. And, of course, to everybody hanging out with us in the YouTube chat, welcome. Hit that thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And make sure you stick around for the end of the program and your chance to win a WST hoodie in the weekly Winnipeg Sports Talk Marble Race. Got to thank our sponsors that make the show happen every day. The great people at Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Rolly's Transfer, Consolidated Supply, Modern Man Barbershop, Manitoba Battery, Little Brown Jug, Wallace & Wallace, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, F Apparel, The Beer Can, the Winnipeg Gold Eyes, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend Country Club, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Canadian Club, perfect for a Friday. And we will get to a why not question of the day for Nota Auto Corp over at Waverly and McGilvery. Let's get Remis in here and get going. What's up? Happy Friday to you as well.
Feeling good, ready for the weekend. A bit of a different kind of week with the Jets off, but we've had a number of great stories. And the Stanley Cup Playoffs, seems like third of the league needs a head coach too, so big head coach watch ongoing. But yeah, feeling good. Weather's warming up, Huss.
It was so nice yesterday. I actually went over to the Beer Can after work yesterday and met a couple friends. And it was just, it doesn't take long for spring to kick in. You get a couple nice days around here, plus 20 and above, get the sunshine out, and we're feeling it. It's taken a bit of the sting off of last week and the rather quick exit for our Jets out of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But it was a great night. Had a couple over there. Had a Paloma, a frozen beverage, which was delicious. Had never had one of those before. Something to eat from the Cosmos Kitchen. If you're ever at the beer can, try that Golden Gal burger. Oh my God, was it good. And then hooked up with some friends and watched the games. And, I was really looking forward to the Dallas-Colorado game. Probably should have been just as excited for Rangers-Carolina, considering how good the series has been and how amazing that game 2 was. I did not have listen, even though I said on this program the Rangers were being disrespected, it made no sense why they were big underdogs in the series, having home ice. They've been an underdog in every game. But even that, I did not have the Rangers up 3-0 after 3 games. And there was our old buddy Blake Wheeler in the suit, banging on the glass with his teammates after the Rangers won it in overtime after giving up a late goal to blow a lead in the dying moments of the third period. And Rod the Bod and the Hurricanes are on the ropes. This time down 3-0 in the second round. Usually they get swept in the third round, Remis. They're on the verge of doing it 1 round early this year.
Yeah, I had Carolina going far, and you thought this was the year they're going to get over the hump. They signed Orlov in the offseason, traded for Jake Gensel, and just can't get it done. And you're probably looking at the shot attempts or shots on goal. Carolina keeps putting up 50 shots and out-shooting the Rangers, out-possessing them. But shout out to Mike Kelly putting this out on X. That's Mike Kelly with NHL Network. Even though Carolina's been the one who's winning in some of the categories like shots on goal, they're not getting more shots in the key scoring areas, like inner slot shots. Their expected goals are less than the Rangers, and their actual goals in the series are less than the Rangers as well. So just going to bring up this graphic real quick. Take a look. Ozone possession, Carolina got 10 minutes more than the Rangers. Shot attempts, they got about 75 more. But the Rangers are finding ways to get to the inner slot more than Carolina, which results in more expected goals and more real goals. So, the Rangers quality.
Real goals are key. Real goals are key. That's a stat that you definitely want to do well in. Real goals.
Exactly. So Rangers opting for quality and Carolina going with quantity, and the goaltending too. Shesterkin been lights out for the Rangers. So well done. And it looks like they're going to be probably moving on with 3-0 lead. You don't see those squandered too often.
No, and I guess this will sort of. I don't want to get too far off the playoffs right off the bat, but if the Canes get swept by the Rangers, considering the fact that getting to the Final Four is not easy. 28 other teams wishes they would be there, but the Canes have done that a few times and have gotten worked without even winning a game. They get swept in this round. Considering how reportedly the negotiations have gone between the Carolina Hurricanes and Rod the Bod, I do wonder whether Brind'Amour is back in Carolina or he leaves for what is probably going to be a big check in one of the other coaching vacancies around the league. As I said, we'll get to that in a minute, and I'll bring that up with Brandon when he joins us first up on the program.
Here, before you move on, Huss, I got to interrupt. Just get ready. If the Rangers win the cup for Trouba passing it to Wheeler, and we did have a Blake Wheeler sighting last night. Here he is, banging on the glass.
Big glass banger.
After the win. So...
He's basically turned into the Rangers hype guy. Like if you've seen some of their videos after wins, he's there in the suit, high-fiving everyone. And listen, we all know what a competitor Blake Wheeler is. I mean, this season has, brutal injury for a guy that was as close to an Ironman as we had in Winnipeg for years. He's been skating again. I guess he's back on the ice, which is great. I'm not sure whether there's much of a chance of him getting into any playoff action. But when you're a competitor like Blake is, you want to be in it. You want to be with the team. You want to be around the team, and he's certainly there and bringing a lot of energy and enthusiasm off the ice, albeit not necessarily on. But yeah, I did see that a lot. And listen, a lot of Jet fans pretty pleased to see what's happening with the Rangers right now. Jack Roslovic getting another chance, kind of that redemption deadline deal that he's making the most of right now. Certainly, we are all familiar with Jacob Trouba's game and, Blake Wheeler in the mix there, although not in the action right now. So the Canes are on the verge. The Dallas Stars probably felt pretty close to that late in the third period yesterday, Remis. Don't blink, and no lead is safe against the Colorado Avalanche, a game that looked like it was over at 4-0 after 2 all of a sudden became a white-knuckle ride for the home Dallas Stars. 4-3 and having to kill a penalty in the final 2 minutes, but they get the empty netter from, I believe it was Esa Lindell, and win 5-3 and avoid disaster and a 2-0 deficit heading to Denver. This one's all tied up.
Yeah, who out there turned it off? Who turned it off? I was close. I was like, you know what? I'll have it on. I'll move it to the smaller TV. I'm not going to have it on the big one. And then another corner of my eye, all right, 4-1, 4-2, 4-3. Like, we got a game here. And Dallas, hanging on for life at the end. A big coming out party for Roope Hintz, 4 points. He'd been basically invisible all playoffs until then. So big game for him. As you mentioned, Esa Lindell icing at the end, but they're got to watch out for Colorado, man. They're so dangerous, and we saw it here. And giving Dallas a run, special teams, Dallas taking advantage 2 for 5, Colorado going 0 for 3. It's been a huge factor in every series.
Hey, just quickly on empty nets, and this is not on empty net etiquette, like we had a few instances earlier this season. But at what point did we see teams so willingly begin to just fire at the net from their own end with an empty net? Like, I just feel like over the last few years, we've seen a change, and I have a feeling it probably has to do with analytics, like the benefit of scoring a goal as opposed to, if you don't score, icing and getting the face-off back in your own end. Like, there was a time where you were never supposed to ice it. You don't want to do that. You put it off the glass. You put it up in the air. Now, in almost every game, we're seeing teams, if they get the puck in their own end, they're first of all getting it out, and they're trying to get it on net. Icing be damned. And it really has been an interesting change over the last few years in hockey.
Yeah, I think these guys are pretty good at shooting it from 200 feet away into an empty net. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of agree with you. It's happened in the last couple of years where teams are more okay taking a shot. Hey, if you get an icing, it's fine. Just try to win the faceoff and do it again. Maybe it is analytic driven. You're seeing teams pull the goalie earlier too as well. So there's stuff, people have changed their strategies over the years. Go for the empty netter, but maybe sometimes it's better to make sure it gets out.
Will, Boomer Huss rant again. That's not a rant. To be honest, it makes a lot of sense to me. I'm just kind of like thinking, okay, at what point did we have that change? Mm-hmm. Because I will tell you that, 7-8 years ago, you did not see a lot of teams shoot first as opposed to try to clear the puck. And now, I mean, it's commonplace. Now, some teams have a philosophy of doing it more than others, but is way more commonplace. Like, it seems like the fear of that defensive zone face-off doesn't come close to the benefit of potentially icing the game with an empty netter. It makes a lot of sense to me. We were just talking about it last night, and that has been a trend that is really we're seeing it a lot more right now, especially in the playoffs with what's on the line, knowing that it doesn't matter if you lose 4-3 or 5-3, a loss is a loss. And we've also seen some pretty exciting games with a lot of empty nets so far. So anyways, good on the Stars. I think that could have been a shorter series if Dallas didn't get the win. We know how good Colorado is at home. They're the best home team in the National Hockey League. They're still in a very good spot, but they almost pulled off another comeback against the Dallas Stars last night, and that would have been absolutely devastating. Hey, Remis, let's talk about this for a minute because we'll get back to the National Hockey League and obviously kind of dive in with Scott and Billeck or with Brandon and Billeck to everything happening around the league and the coaching situations. Did you, or, and I'll put this out to chat, did everybody see this video from Steve Dangle last night? The breaking news about a new 3-on-3 hockey league professional that is going to be starting allegedly next year here in North America. Did you catch that, Reem?
Yeah, I was scrolling X last night, Huss, and this video of Dangle in his room with all the stuff on the wall came up, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And yeah, I did make it through the whole 5 minutes and 44 seconds of breaking news from
It was extensive.
He had a lot of details in there, Hustler. A lot of details. Do you want me to go through the Cole's notes here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, here's the nuts and bolts of what was reported yesterday by I don't know, new insider, 3-on-3 insider Steve Dangle.
It was kind of funny because he put out this thing saying, hey, this 3-on-3 league is coming out this fall, Major League Hockey. And then a number of other reporters followed up saying, yeah, I've been hearing about this too, but no one really thinks that it's going to be able to take off. So there was about over 2.5 million views, his video yesterday on X.
So it's a 3-on-3 league. There's going to be 14 players on the team, 2 goalies, 12 skaters. I believe they said the games were like 2 12-minute halves.
Something like that.
24-minute games, which, again, I got a hard time wrapping my head around if they're just playing single games. What, you're going to show up at a rink and you're going to watch a 24-minute game and that's it? I don't know. I'm sure there's more to it. But as far as the actual business of it, what we know or what he reported is that 16 teams in North America, a $30 million salary cap, with 3, I guess, designated professionals or guys with professional experience that probably are taking the majority of that salary cap, as well as junior and college players sort of rounding that out. There's a lot of rumors that the money behind this is, in fact, Saudi Arabia. And, we won't get into all the, the issues of the Saudis, but it's easy to compare. I mean, the first thing I heard, oh my God, this is going to be live hockey? And the Saudis have been major disruptors in the world of golf. They have, and listen, in the world of soccer too. I'm going to ask Scott about this because I know he's it. I mean, look, Ronaldo signed with some Saudi team. He's playing at a level nowhere close. It would be like, signing Connor McDavid to go and play in the second league in Sweden or something like that, like a league where he's just completely overmatched, or the competition is overmatched, but getting a ridiculous amount of money. And I couldn't help but laugh, Remis, that agent Alan Walsh was a guy that sort of chimed in on this, that this was coming and this was going to be very good, because at the end of the day, competition is great for the market when it comes to players. I have a hard time thinking that anyone with an NHL contract or an NHL free agent would decide to maybe take a bit more money moving to a brand new 3-on-3 league. But I don't think there's any doubt that if there's 16 teams with $30 million to spend, that's almost $500 million, that there won't be some major effects and trickle down at the pro level, particularly in the NHL, when it comes to keeping guys around.
Yeah, so just to summarize, new 3-on-3 hockey league Steve Dangle says is coming in the fall, called MHL, Major League Hockey. They have a $30 million salary cap per team, 16 or 14 teams in North America, and he listed a number of cities, some with NHL franchises, some without, like Kansas City or Phoenix or something.
Manitoba not there, but Saskatchewan was on the list.
Saskatchewan was on the list. I think Vancouver, some in Ontario area, and 12 skaters per team. So, you know what? I think it's pretty soon I get a league up and running. It's May 10 here. To have it ready for the fall seems quite ambitious, and there were a number of people, I think David Pagnotta and Brad Schlossman in Grand Forks, were saying, I've heard about this too, but, I'm not sure if this is actually, they're going to be able to pull this off. But as far as throwing money, yeah, if someone wants to throw like an AHL player, a big contract, I could see players jumping, but are people going to be interested? Do people want to watch this? There's already a summer 3-on-3 league, Huss, called 3 Ice that tours around the United States. Ice Cube has his 3-on-3 basketball league that has been a success, I think, in the summer. But I don't know if like launching a league, like I don't think it's going to work in terms of revenue, but I don't know how much they really care. They have all this money and they want to throw it around.
Product? And here, I'll put this out. Why not question of the day for not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray? Are you interested in full ice, full games of 3-on-3 hockey? Like, listen, 3-on-3 is really exciting in the NHL because both teams have their point. They're playing for an extra one. And it's sort of run and gun, all out, defense be damned, try and end the game with a goal. The more we've seen the coaches get involved in 3-on-3, the less fun and exciting it's been. Now, I'm sure they can tweak rules and do some things, have a shot clock, those sort of things that can make it. But I don't know, me personally, I haven't been dying for more 3-on-3 as opposed to what we get right now. Looking at the things, poll the chat, says Bullish Bradley. No thanks, pass. Jay Miller, is there a TV deal? Well, there's not even a league yet officially, so I don't think there's a TV deal. And listen, if it is Saudi money and it is anything like Live, you'll probably have a smattering of people at these games and 200 people watching on YouTube. But guys getting paid an incredible amount of money. Also, by the way, and I think Running Man mentioned this in the chat, $100,000 a game per win as well. So, I mean, if this comes to fruition, just the money alone will certainly shake up the professional hockey environment in North America, and I think certainly it'll hit Europe as well. But as you mentioned, I mean, and take it, I've worked enough in pro sports on teams, including teams starting their first year as a new club. The amount of work that goes behind the scenes to establish and get up and running is so significant just for a team to wrap your head around a brand new league with 16 teams, doing it in time for next fall when we're in the middle of May. Sounds very far-fetched, but a lot of money can buy you a lot of things. So I just found it was interesting. And obviously, Remis, it was sort of the talk of social media last night in between periods of these games.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I mean, here was the tweet from Brad Schlossman in Grand Forks responding, everyone weighing in. For what it's worth, I received these documents a month ago. There's so many red flags. I didn't believe it's actually a thing. I still don't. There's so much that doesn't add up, including the person behind it. The markets have changed in the last month. In fact, I guess he's talking about the cities that it's in. So, well, I mean, we'll see. It was an interesting note there from Dangle last night. And if it could change free agency, if players do jump, if there's someone out there offering ridiculous sums of money, that's impossible to turn down. So we'll file it under Huss, the file of it's interesting, and believe it when we see it.
Yeah, the Rob Pepper, where does the money come from? Will gas prices go up? I cannot comment on that. I am not sure. Running Man, I watched the podcast. I thought it was an April Fool's joke. I did see that. Matt Jansen, Sonny Milano will be a team captain. You know who might be perfect for this league? And is a pro that might be able to get a piece of that $30 million as one of the pros that would probably be really good in that league is Capobianco. he just finished, winning AHL Defenseman of the Year. I'm not sure what NHL opportunities there are out there for him, but if they are, he's probably making $1 million. He was making $762 last year with the Jets organization. I'll tell you what, he might be one of those guys that could actually be really good in that format and maybe get a much better deal than he has currently playing on 5-on-5. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but when I think about 3-on-3 hockey and how good Capobianco, how mobile he is, and the season that he just had. If they're not picking off current NHLers, he's about the closest thing to it, and probably could be good for it. So, anyways, that was the big story last night outside of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're back at it tonight, though. Boston, Florida, and then Vancouver, Edmonton. We can kind of talk more about these games a little later on and get into the lines later on our Cool Bet segment towards the end of the show, Reem. The one thing I'm going to make sure I do is make sure I have the game on and it is cranked when the Boston Bruins come out at the Garden. Because considering how that game 2 ended in Florida with the 1-1 series split and David Pastrnak coming off the bench to throw down with Matthew Tkachuk, I think we're going to see an elevated atmosphere from one that was already going to be bananas. And that welcome for Pasta and the Bruins from the Bruins faithful is going to be something. And considering the way that game 2 ended, I cannot wait to see what happens next in game 3.
Yeah, these are two pretty good teams, and they had the fireworks at the end. I think Florida's going to want to try to continue that. We'll see about Boston. I just still don't know, how, you look at the roster, I'm still blown away by how they're doing this. So, Matthew Tkachuk, he goes out there, he gets under people's skin, and I'm sure it'll be no different there tonight in Boston. They still have that anthem singer, does the hand gestures. He's still around?
No. Rennie.
Oh, yeah, Rennie. Yeah.
Whatever his name is.
Rennie Rancourt.
And yeah, Rennie Rancourt's out. And their new singer is that guy that used to be the bartender in TD Garden.
What?
Yeah, man. Like the bigger dude that wears the suit now. Awesome singer. He was a bartender at TD Garden. And I'm not sure what the circumstances was where he got. I mean, obviously he's a professional singer. What the connect was, but yeah, his first game, he came down from the bar to the ice. He's got the big arms from pouring all those 17 to 24-ounce beers.
A lot of hand gestures that would annoy people.
He didn't quite bite Rennie's full over-the-top moves, but I think he does give him a little bit of a nod in and around the playoffs. Anyways, make sure you're tuned in. If you're going to watch that game, get there for the start. I think it's going to be electric. And then tonight, we will see whether the Edmonton Oilers can get back into their series after a stunning collapse against the Vancouver Canucks in game number 1. By the way, everyone's talking in chat, and we probably should have done this. I didn't even know this. You didn't tell me this until I got the stream ready up on my screen so I could see the chat. Remis, this is our 800th show today.
Yeah, this is number 800. This is why it's good to keep track so you can celebrate milestones, because I've done a lot of shows, in 12 years of doing this daily. But yeah, this is number 800 for Winnipeg Sports Talk, and it's good. You can tell people how many you do, and you let them know so you can celebrate it. So 800, that's kind of cool. Wasn't sure if we'd get past 5 when we started.
We did. We continue to break a record every day we do a show, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But seriously, 800. Thank you so much to everyone that's been with us along the ride. Here's to many more, especially all of you that hang out with us and contribute so much in the chat every day. All of our podcast listeners, and of course, all the sponsors that make the show happen, because we would not be able to do it without you. Hey, by the way, speaking of milestones, quick personal one. All the best to my wonderful parents. 55th wedding anniversary today. 55 years. That's a long time. Probably 15 good ones for sure out of that. That's a joke my dad says, but no, 15 wonderful years for my folks. Love you both, and congratulations so much. We're going to get to a bunch of these puck stories, as well as the Jets coaching search with Brandon Rewucki coming up in just a second. There's going to be a lot of moving done by certain NHL coaches around. If you are doing a move this summer, you're probably stressed about it. There's a lot that goes into it. Let the experts at Rollies Transfer take as much of the stress out of your move as possible. Listen, they're family owned and operated for over 60 years here in Manitoba and have become the most trusted name in moving services in Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. They've got an extensive logistics business, so they are all over southern Manitoba regularly, which means flexible times, routes, and the best prices around. Easiest way to connect with Rollies is go to their brand new website. It's phenomenal. They just relaunched it. Rollies.com, ROLLYS.com. And up at the top right, there's a request a quote feature. So you can let them know what you need moved, where you need it done. There's a very quick turnaround. They'll get in touch with you, let you know the exact cost to make it happen, and then work on getting you from point A to point B with all of your precious belongings. Rollies Transfer, Manitoba's most trusted name in moving services for over 60 years, and great people as well. Find out more and request your quote at rollies.com. Matt, our friends at Consolidated Supply have got a lot going on right now. They're the leaders in irrigation systems, artificial turf, golf carts, other great options for your property, including hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchens. And of course, they're also the leaders in small engine parts and repair. And you know what? I would suggest go onto Instagram at Consolidated Supply. They've got a whole bunch of new lines that they're carrying right now as well, for all sorts of needs that you may have throughout the summer. Again, it's Consolidated Supply on Instagram, but pop on over to their website, cte.ca. You can find out more about everything Consolidated Supply has going on. And in the meantime, and again, the Insta has a lot of photos of just new merch and new products that are coming in right now that they've got. But the place to be is their showroom. It's open to the public. Pop by and see them, 1395 Niagara Road East, or you can find out more online at cte.ca. Hey, for all those tools, machines, and vehicles that you're going to be having fun with this summer, you got to make sure you've got your batteries taken care of. And now is the time to load up and take advantage of the Manitoba Battery Spring Sale to get you out of winter into the fun part of the year. Batteries literally for everything, and so many of them on sale on top of the already lowest prices in town. Manitoba Battery, shop local, get the best prices in town, period, beating the pants off the big box stores. And don't forget, they've got free delivery with any purchase over $60 within the perimeter of Winnipeg. But you can't pop down and see them at 1026 Logan Avenue. Their brand new location on the south side at 438 Dover Court, or just simply go online to manitobabattery.com to see everything available at Manitoba Battery and for their spring sale right now. And just before we bring in a man synonymous with great hair, guys, if you need a touch-up, a new cut, a new look, why don't you head down to Modern Man Barber Shop this weekend. 8 locations for Modern Man in the city, conveniently located near you, including the newest 2 stores, Plessy Road and Pembina Highway. We've got you covered, fellas, with great haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and so much more. Awesome selection of products, great people as well. And if you do go to the Pembina, you'll get a chance to see Toby, the dog that hangs out in the barber shop all day, which just add to it all. Make an appointment at your local Modern Man. You can book your look online, modernmanbarber.com. Give them a follow on Instagram as well over at Modern Man Barber Shops. All right, let's get Brandon Rewucki in here for a little Friday chat. Rue, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. What's going on over there?
Well, I have been completely enthralled with the last 3 nights of playoff hockey. Like, last night was pretty good. The previous 2 were, I mean, listen, as good of a back-to-back night I can remember. I mean, game 2 between the Rangers and Carolina that went into double overtime, I think might have been the game of the playoffs so far. And then you follow that up with the comeback of Colorado against Dallas, and then, you know, the the vitriol of the Panthers and Bruins going at it with the fight between Pasta and Tkachuk, and then Vancouver coming back against Edmonton. I mean, the first round, I think, was somewhat anticlimactic, certainly for fans around here. No such case for the second round so far of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
No, I thought the first round as a whole was pretty anticlimactic, to be honest with you. I mean, all 8 favorites won, right? So there wasn't, I of really Toronto-Boston, there wasn't a ton of drama going on. But the reward for that is obviously, I mean, this is setting up to be one of the better second rounds we've seen in like a decade at least. I mean, it is elite. And when your off night is Colorado almost pulling off a stunning comeback, right? And whatever the hell's going on out there with the Rangers and Hurricanes, it's awesome right now. It's pretty wild, man. Like this regular season really was one of the best we've seen. You can make the case ever with what the teams and individuals were doing, and now it's really shaping up to be. Usually, you kind of lose momentum. I feel like come playoff time as you get deeper and deeper, but it feels like we're building to something pretty special here.
You know who's lost momentum? Rod the Bod and the Carolina Hurricanes. And funny enough, I mean, listen, I think the books really lean on analytics and stuff when they're putting together odds and whatnot, and it's been sort of weird. Like the Canes have always been right up with Stanley Cup favorites. Going into this round, they were tied with the Oilers for Cup favorites. The Rangers won the President's Trophy. They've been an underdog in all 3 games, and yet here they are, 1 game away from moving on 7-0 with a goaltender that is playing at an absolutely incredibly high level. But when you dig in a little bit more, Carolina all about quantity of shots and not necessarily quality.
It's really funny too, Huss, because you know we talked about this a little bit on the podcast, but there's so much talk about like the identity that the Jets should have and things like that, and so many people point towards how the Hurricanes play. And it's kind of like the ideal team game that you see from Carolina, right? Like it's balls to the wall 99% of the time. They're going to heavily outshoot you during the game. And if you don't want to work and bring your lunch pail to the ice, it's going to be ugly for you. But I've always thought and kind of think that, you know, the Jets should be avoiding that strategy and looking a little bit more at what the New York Rangers are doing because it fits Winnipeg's personnel a lot better. And I think we're starting to see the fatal flaw in Carolina's system in that, especially come playoff time, when you go up against an elite goalie, shot quantity almost means nothing, right? Like if you're going to blast away from the point and blast away from the outside, if anything, you're almost doing a favor to a goalie like Shesterkin. Like, oh, you're going to let me get warmed up a bit before we get into this? All right, let's go. And I wonder if that's going to be successful come playoff time when you don't have those ultimate game breakers. I think Carolina was hoping that Aho and Svechnikov would be those guys for them. They might just be in the tier below that. So it is funny too how, you know, the analytical darling team is being foiled by a team the analytics has always frowned upon in the New York Rangers, who, you know, they don't worry too much about 5-on-5 share and things like that, but it's good luck beating our Tendi and good luck stopping our high-end shooters, especially on the special teams, right? And that's been the biggest shocker in the series for me, is the fact that Carolina's vaunted penalty kill is hopeless against what New York is putting out there. I don't know who could have seen that coming. Maybe that flips the series a little bit more there, but it's a pretty interesting, like, theoretical debate watching these two teams play, and ultimately with New York up 3-0 right now.
Well, and it's so funny. I mean, like, to think about how this is resonating inside NHL front offices as they're deciding on, you know, who they want to talk to for their head coach. There's a lot of teams in a similar spot at the Winnipeg Jets, and different teams have different philosophies, but they're all paying attention to what's working and what isn't working in the playoffs right now. And you do wonder what sort of effect that has, because pro sports in general, you know, can often turn into copycat leagues, and you want to copy the guys that are winning. And right now, the team that everyone thought was going to be really well positioned to go on a long run could be out very quickly in the second round. I kind of do want to transition to talking coaching openings, but before we do that, I got to ask you about Vancouver Edmonton. What a wild first game, and it was wild for a number of reasons. One, the Oilers just didn't look that good at all. Even on the goals that they scored, you got a couple of gimmies from Shilovs early. The first period, the shots were 10-5 Edmonton, and there were still extended periods where Vancouver was living in their zone. After the first intermission, Brandon, it was all Vancouver. Edmonton went over 22 minutes without a shot. I mean, the Canucks were the team that looked like the real deal and got rewarded for their relentless nature, led by Rick Tocchet. And that's a team, speaking of coaching, that has sort of really embodied what we remembered of Rick Tocchet as a player and as a leader.
Yeah, I mean, that's an unforgivable game to give away if you're the Oilers there. Like, you had it in the bag. You might have had the series in the bag at that point, too, knowing you at least get a split going back home. And I just can't remember the last time I've seen a playoff team winning a game failed to show up for the remainder of the game. Like, it was just non-existent. But I think it's also a reminder that, and I have had Edmonton going very deep in the playoffs, and I had them beating Vancouver in a series. But I feel like the Canucks are a really, really underrated team. And they just have been getting no respect all playoffs long, all regular season long. And everybody just kind of earmarked this as, this will be an easy Edmonton Oilers series win. And I don't think it's going to go down that way. Edmonton certainly found that out the hard way. But it was a pretty shocking performance from the Oilers side of things, just because, it's hard to envision other cup contending teams failing to choke that one out, right? Even if you don't have your A game there, like it should be curtains at that point, especially when you've got McDavid and Draisaitl, right? And there was just, for whatever reason, a bizarre lack of urgency, and you just knew once Vancouver got one, you could feel the tide turn watching it from TV. And I think it was just at that point, Edmonton's like, we got to find a way to get to OT, and Vancouver's like, that's not going to happen.
I'll be honest, and I don't know whether we really talked about this on the show, but before that game, the league announced the finalists for the Pearson Trophy, which is the MVP as voted on by the players. And the finalists were Kucherov, who's a Hart finalist. The finalist was Nate McKinnon, who is a Hart finalist. The other finalist was Austin Matthews, not Connor McDavid. And I kind of thought there might be an FU performance to the rest of the brethren and the voting members of the NHLPA from McDavid in game one. Far from it. I kind of think that might happen tonight.
You might not even known about I got a bunch of those at home. Whatever, man. But I think the game one no-show by the team is a bigger.
How do you see this one going tonight? And I mean, is this a game where McDavid sort of, almost single-handedly puts a team on his back and kind of tries to will the rest of the crew into it? He's one of the few guys that can really flip a game, flip a series on his own. But I'm like you, and I was saying this all week leading into this series. Do not count Vancouver out. It's insane how people are just writing this team off. All they've done is proven you wrong at every step of the year of the season. And why not right now? Especially the way they came through in the first round with their third string goaltender. But this is a big one tonight. I mean, the Oilers can still come back with a split, which would be fine. But Vancouver's got just so much momentum from the way they won that game. The only way that could have been more devastating for Vancouver or for Edmonton, I think, is if it was later on in the series and like a game 5 or a game 6.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like, I expect another tight one here. I mean, the one kind of iffy factor about that is, if the seal-offs from the first period shows up throughout the game, then it's going to get ugly. I mean, he looked like a third string goalie.
Or the Skinner from the third.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but there's two things I'm really interested in watching in this game. One is, especially with the last change, watching Quinn Hughes against Connor McDavid, because there might be 2 or 3 defensemen in hockey that can, as close as you can get to skating with McDavid, and Quinn Hughes is one of those guys, and he played him pretty good in the opening game. I mean, it was. I'm intrigued to see if we get a little continuation of that. At least 5-on-5 come power play time. It's all bets are off at that point. But I don't know what Edmonton does about this Nurse-Ceci pairing, Huss. It is beyond disastrous. Take the cap hits out of the equation here. They're unplayable at the moment. Unplayable. Like they're getting torched to an unbelievable degree, and they're getting way too much ice time against a Canucks team that, with the way they've filtered out their lineup, basically is having one of Paterson, JT Miller, Besser, Lindholm out there at all times. Like there's no real escape from those pairs, or from that pair of facing one of Vancouver's higher end offensive weapons. And I don't know how you magically just, wave the wand and say, all right, Nurse and Ceci, it's 2019 all over again. That's a big concern for Edmonton. And I won't be shocked to see Vancouver become opportunistic when those two are out there on the ice and game.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to that game tonight. All right, let's get back closer to home with the Jets. He kind of spent the week celebrating Rick Bowness, his contributions to hockey, but also his contributions here in Winnipeg. And there's absolutely no doubt this team is in a way better spot than they were when he took over. There's still a bad taste in a lot of players' mouths, I'm sure, fans, with the way the team went out to an unbelievable Colorado team. But this team did win 52 games, certainly was a contender. Brandon, when you look at where the team is at right now, this isn't a blow it up situation. Regardless of names, what do you think should be the most important things that Chevy and his team are looking for in a guy to continue to move this forward, but create much better performances in the postseason?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially when you say take the name out of it. And what's funny about that too, Huss, is, there's no, especially, since 2000 or so, there hasn't been a real difference in terms of cup-winning head coaches, whether it's newcomers or a second go-around or a retread. It's a pretty even split. So, it's funny when people get all up in arms about whether it's a new guy or somebody that's been around the block before. As far as winning the Stanley Cup goes, there's not really a big difference no matter which direction you go. It's just, how do we find the right guy at the right time? Rick Bowness was the right guy at the right time for the Jets 2 years ago. And so now I think it's building off the structure that's in place and elevating this team to new heights. And I think, for me at least, what I would be looking for is somebody who's willing to kind of mesh and bridge the gap of the veteran players and the up-and-coming youth on this roster. It seems like there is a second wave coming here with Lambert, Chibrikov, McGroarty, maybe even Salamonson for the upcoming season potentially, and then a few other guys in the years to come. And then the 30-plus-year-olds on this team as well. So I think one would be, how are you going to work that in while still making this a team that's going to compete for the top of the division? Even bigger than that, though, Huss, honestly, it's just special teams for me. That's it. How are you? What is your plan for our special teams? Because, again, going back to my Rangers example, what New York has that other teams don't necessarily have is a Vezina caliber goaltender and high-end shooters that can kill you on the power play, and then a penalty kill that's one of the league's best. That's how they've had success despite middling 5-on-5 numbers for the past several seasons. Guess what Winnipeg has, Huss? A Vezina winning goaltender and some high-end skill that could potentially hurt you on the power play. It's just going to be, one, how do we maximize the power play? And then most importantly, what's the plan here to make this a top 10 penalty kill? Because as disastrous as the series ended up being against Colorado, imagine the Jets had a 20% power play and an 83% penalty kill, right? Nothing too crazy. They're in that series for another game or so, at the very least, right? And it gives you a fighting chance at that point. So it seems kind of odd because special teams are what, a fifth of the game? At most, maybe? But we've seen this team, and I think we know their realistic ceiling. They're not going to have the high-end talent that a Colorado or an Edmonton have. They're not going to play a similar style to a Boston or a Florida. So it's how can we maximize what we have on this roster? And so maybe that's kind of the ultimate question here is just, this is what we have. We have some avenues to improve, but within, realistic opportunities, how do we take the next step and what are your goals to get us there?
Well, and listen, we talked with Ken yesterday, and I was prefacing this, talking about Scott Arniel, who by all accounts would be the favorite, to be the next head coach of the Jets. He's got a lot of positives. I mean, a great relationship with the team, was a big part of a coaching staff that did accomplish so much. The one thing that, if you want to talk about a red flag for Scott, is that penalty kill that he was over. And Ken made a great point. Scott Arniel was also in charge of the power play that turned around and was 7th in the league the previous season. Which brings me to this question. What happened with the Jets power play this year? Like, I'm not sure. Like, they didn't all of a sudden forget everything they'd done before. They obviously didn't execute it as well. There's a few different individuals, but as we said yesterday, we haven't even mentioned the name Saku Menelainen since last offseason. I'm pretty sure it wasn't Saku's gone. Like, was this just a blip, or any thoughts or theories on that? Because I certainly don't have the answer. And if we're judging coaches on performance, certainly for Scott Arniel, I think he gets the benefit of a 2-year window, including 1 year where that PK was very strong and was a strength of the team. It just wasn't this year, despite the record.
Yeah, and I can't really call it a blip because it was clearly by design. They were doing what they wanted to do. There was a level of passiveness that it's just unacceptable. Like, you're just going to get killed by teams. And Colorado must have been laughing after game 1, right? Like, looking at the tape and going, oh, like, we're going to eat these guys alive here. And they did. I mean, you can't allow so much time and space, and it doesn't matter who's in net behind you. I mean, 80% of the teams in the NHL will eat you alive if you allow them a little bit of time and space to make plays and make moves. They don't cover the seams well, despite being passive. And on top of all of that, when was the last time they won a puck battle in front of Connor Hellebuck, right? Or boxed a guy out in front of Hellebuck? It was a complete disaster all around. I'll tell you what, if he's going to be the head coach, he better have some damn good answers as to what happened the previous year and how it's going to be fixed moving forward. Maybe it is just, bringing in somebody else to run the PK and somebody else to run the special teams. You kind of become like the Mike Tomlin head coach, you know what I mean? And you delegate to other guys on your bench. I'm okay with that, but the answer cannot be we were good 2 years ago, we'll figure it out this year. Because it was bizarre to me watching how they failed to attack anybody on the penalty kill. Well, you look at the better penalty kill units in the NHL, and they all have the exact same theme. Like, they go after the puck. They don't play scared just because they're a man down. That, to me, is your only hope of success with how high end the talent is around the league these days. So it would be a fascinating question to be a fly on the wall there to hear, please explain the difference in results with the same person.
Did they play significantly different this year than they did last year with with the same coaches and the same players for the most part? Like, as I said, I just have a hard time wrapping my head around how, and listen, there are things that'll go up and down over the course of time. Last year, that was not a strength of this club. Special teams overall weren't. And in the past, that had been something that had not been an anchor on the team. And, it speaks to a lot of other things that, frankly, are good, are definitely benefits for Scott Arniel, that the team was able to do what they did, winning 52 games and, all of that, despite the special teams. Like, you made a great point. They've got the Vezina Trophy winning goaltender. If this team all of a sudden is a top 10 specialty teams unit, listen, I wouldn't say that guarantees you even to beat Colorado, because Colorado was playing at such a high level. But I'll tell you what, it's a hell of a lot closer of a series because the Jets really never got into that one. And I guess the other part of it is that, there is a level. We talk about the teams raising their level of play in the playoffs, and we're seeing it right now. What we saw from the Jets in those 5 games, for the most part, is not even close to what we're seeing in the second round of the playoffs, and that's why they're not playing in it right now. But how to get to that and what's involved in doing that, and how much of that is coaching, how much of that is execution and the actual personnel in the team stepping up. Yeah. Again, I don't have the answer, but there's a lot that goes into it. And I know everyone says, well, just get this guy or just get this guy. It doesn't matter who the guy is. It's tough to win, especially in the playoffs, and I don't believe there's any easy fix.
No, or else GMs would not be getting paid as much as they do to build a team and find a coaching staff. And the problem too is it's all of those things you mentioned. Like, there needs to be a revamp of how this team is coached. There needs to be changes made in terms of personnel, and then there needs to be a commitment to what the identity of this team is. Like, it's everything. It doesn't mean they're crazy far off. I don't think that's the case. It just means that you can't nail the coaching hire, wipe your hands and say, away we go. We'll see you off to the cabin. We'll see you guys in August sometime. Right? Like, there's got to be some significant additions and departures this upcoming offseason as well. One of the big ones for me, Huss, especially watching, let's just say Colorado-Dallas right now, is whether it's team speed or individual speed, the Jets need to get a lot faster. A lot faster. I think that's got to be, like, you can talk about this guy, that guy, whatever it is, but there needs to be a pretty emphatic emphasis on bringing in speed and make the Jets a faster team to play against. I think there's a couple areas that they need to identify for sure in terms of upgrades, but team speed would go a long way as well, because I don't think Colorado's slowing down next year. Dallas is a little older, but they've got some young guys coming in. They'll be pretty fast too. That was pretty noticeable when Colorado was going. Oh, they're kind of looking around, going like
the speed on the forecheck. I mean, that's a big reason why the defensemen weren't able to get it out of their own ends. I mean, half the time they were still had their heads on a swivel because of a scoring chance. But I mean, when they had their stick on the puck, there was someone on them immediately. And often, the only answer was just to ice it or to bank it off the glass. And then it was just another wave of Colorado. Hey, listen, and again, I don't anticipate anything happening really quickly on this. So, we'll sort of revisit this throughout the next couple of weeks. But right now, based on the market, the amount of openings, but also the amount of available head coaches, we know Scott Arniel's going to get serious consideration and would be considered the favorite. But when you look at everybody else out there, who are the most intriguing candidates for you when it comes to this Winnipeg Jets team?
Yeah, I got a list actually. Mike Babcock, number 1. No. I mean, there's the usual names, and I wonder, should we even mention Berube, because it feels like a pipe dream. I don't that's just the feeling I get, that it's.
Yeah, listen, there's a bunch of open jobs, and no disrespect to Winnipeg, but guys are going to take probably a lot more money for a couple of jobs. First up, Toronto would be at the front of that list. And Berube, listen, there is a mix. You see the coaches that are doing well right now. Rick Tocchet at the top of that list. I mean, certainly Peter Laviolette, a guy who's been around, a very experienced. Montgomery, Paul Maurice, we know about him. I mean, there is that level of intensity and a motivator in there, and I think Berube is that guy as well. But Berube had a great run with St. Louis, kind of a miracle run, and then, the team sort of, I think, just kind of headed back to where their line was. So going from Keefe, I see why he would be a popular choice with the Leafs, but I can't tell you, I look at that list and even include Scott Arniel and think that, Craig Berube, just because of what happened in 2019, automatically comes in and turns this team from a team that was a speed bump for the Colorado Avalanche into a team that's playing the Dallas Stars right now.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point to make. I mean, I would argue Berube taking the Flyers to the playoffs is arguably a more impressive feat than the Blues winning the Cup. So you can go both ways with that one. But I'll throw out a name that I don't think a lot of people know a ton about, or is one that's under the radar right now. There's a guy I know, a skates and plates source, if you will, who's been very, very high on this. He mentioned it a few years ago, and I've always been kind of intrigued by it. But Jeff Halpern, the former longtime Capital, he's been an assistant with Tampa Bay for a while now. And from what I've heard, he's a very, very bright hockey mind. And he's got a very, very bright coaching future in the NHL. I wouldn't mind taking a chance on and seeing what the John Cooper coaching tree is all about, especially if True North is interested in, we want to make this a long-term hire. That might be somebody that could definitely fit the bill for you. And hey, great news. Halpern was a hell of a penalty killer back when he played. So I feel good about that side of things already. But kind of ironically, he was the assistant coach that actually replaced Rick Bowness when he left Tampa Bay. So I wonder if you go full circle here and Jeff Halpern becomes the next coach of the Winnipeg Jets, replacing Rick Bowness there. But that's a guy that I would have a lot of interest in. If you're looking, because like you said there, it's going to be tough for some of the more high profile names to potentially convince them to come to Winnipeg. So maybe the best route at that point is going a little more under the radar, a diamond in the rough, if you want to call it that. But Jeff Halpern for me is at the top of my wish list. I love Todd Nelson too. I think I'm kind of shocked he hasn't gotten a head coaching gig, because all the dude does is win. He just wins and wins and wins. So if it's not a more high profile name, I'd be just fine with Halpern and Nelson.
Just before we go, Keith, the Devils are going to talk to Keith. They've received permission to get right at that. What are your thoughts on Sheldon and what will be his second act in the league?
It's really, really interesting. I don't know. I really don't know. He seems like a really smart, intelligent, thoughtful guy. I think he's going to do better in his second spot than in his first spot.
So do I.
I think we're going to find out pretty quickly. And there was a clip. I don't know if you saw this circulating around the other day, but I think it was during the playoff series against Montreal. And I don't know which game it was, but Keith came into the dressing room and he just lets into them. Like he's just ripping the Leafs. And the looks on the players' faces. At that point, if I was Keith, it would be I'm grabbing a stick and I'm just bashing people, because they looked like they had no interest at all in an attempt at motivation there. But it looked to me like a guy that's trying to do all the right things, and he just doesn't have winners in front of him. You know what I mean? So I think Keith is a smart enough guy that he's going to know what went wrong in Toronto and how he's going to fix it moving forward. But I mean, yes, the playoff success wasn't there for them. But, I mean, he did an outstanding job in taking a Leafs team that was focused on offense only and turning them into a pretty damn good defensive team without the goaltending to go behind it. I wouldn't mind him if the Winnipeg Jets went that route. The big concern for me, though, would be that the special teams for Toronto was maybe worse somehow than Winnipeg's this postseason. And so that would be another conversation of,
with those guys, like a 1 for 21 or 22 power play with $40 million on the ice and 4 players is hard to wrap your head around. Brandon, always great having you on the show, man. Have a great weekend and enjoy some nice weather and the playoffs on the weekend.
Sounds good, brother. We'll talk soon.
Good stuff. Grab Skates and Plates on your favorite podcast feed, wherever you get them, with Brandon and Tyson Rewucki. All right, I mentioned just at the beginning of the show when I was talking to Remis about how gorgeous it was yesterday. And it looks like we're going to have a real nice weekend coming up. A perfect time to get out to the beer can if you haven't been there already. Actually saw regular WSTer Les Thompson, who I'm sure is going to be out there. Les was there having a couple after work. It is the biggest and most beautiful outdoor beer garden in the city, with incredible drinks, more than actually just the best in local beers as well. We got margaritas. I had that Paloma last night, which I think will be very popular. And oh my God, the food from the Cosmos guys. Highly recommend the Golden Gal Burger. Had that yesterday, chips and queso. Anyways, such a great spot to take advantage of what is happening outside. They've also got great programming throughout the week. You can find out more. Give them a follow on Instagram at the Beer Can WPG. And by the way, if you go there today or tomorrow, tell them Hustler sent you from Winnipeg Sports Talk. And I think they've got 20 beers waiting for WSTers. So the first 20 people that pop by and say, hey, Huss sent me, just when you're getting a beer, you will get the first one on us and our friends at the Beer Can. The guys at Wallace & Wallace might want to head over to the Beer Can on the weekend because I know how busy they are with what's going on right now. It's time to get those fences up, folks. And Wallace & Wallace have been the fencing and overhead door specialists in Winnipeg and Manitoba since 1946, if you can believe it. Listen, if you need the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter did a number on your old one, give them a call. They've got it all. Ornamental, vinyl, welded wire, chain link, wood fences, whatever the right one for your home, property, or business, they can make that happen. And of course, if it's time to replace your garage door, they do have Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. 452-2700 is the number. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also find out more and visit them online at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenaston. Hey, gang, as well, we'll be outside. Wedding season's coming up. Lots of big events throughout the summer. If you need to up your menswear game, you got to get on that with a trip down to F Apparel at 190 Smith Street downtown. Guys, they've got custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. If you are having a wedding or in a wedding party, make sure to talk to the guys at F about a 15% discount when the fellas get their suits at F Apparel. They've also got a great deal right now, a special promo for high school graduates needing a suit to finish their high school career and take them into that next step. F Apparel is at 190 Smith Street. Make an appointment at F, that's EPHapparel.com. And hey, it is Friday. Cheers to our friends at Canadian Club for making weekends great and so much more. The Bombers are back at Princess Auto Stadium. We'll be talking Bomber training camp a little later on with John Hodge. But don't forget, exhibition game this month, if you can believe it. And when we get to the Bombers, a lot of Bomber fans sipping on their favorite Canadian Club products, including the CC and Ginger Ale, available in cans. Canadian Club, proud sponsors of your Bombers in the official spirit of the blue and gold and Princess Auto Stadium. But in the meantime, pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts and get Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club, at Manitoba Liquor Mart locations. All right. John Hodge coming up. We're going to get to the Pinball Clemens, Chad Kelly saga, Bomber training camp as well. But first up, let's welcome in Scott Billeck for a Friday visit for more on the Jets head coaching search and the Stanley Cup playoffs. Billeck, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Going good on holidays. So it's been a nice little treat. I actually missed the bonus thing this past Monday, but yeah, that's fine. Obviously nice to... good for him, obviously. That's a long time, 5 decades in a coaching role, playing even longer than that, right? I think it touches 6 if you had his playing career. I could be wrong. But either way, what a career, and not surprised that he called it quits, given everything he's been through over the last couple of years here and that. So, yeah, good for him. He can ride off. He didn't get the Stanley Cup, but as he said himself, more importantly, he got a lot of good relationships out of that, and a lot of big names that can kind of credit their ascension to superstardom. I suppose he can be credited for that, and he can take joy in that. I guess as his career comes to an end.
Well, Bones has touched people.
Yeah.
All around the league. All around hockey at every level for a really long time. And I know we're sort of all locked in and focused on, the upcoming head coaching search and what's next for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
But as disappointing as what happened against the Avalanche in the first round is, or was, this team, I mean, when you think back to the state of this franchise
yeah.
and organization 2 years ago now to when Rick Bowness took over, as opposed to right now coming off a 52-win season with, I think, a foundation to move forward and, you know, be a contending team.
Yeah.
He will be always revered and remembered very fondly here in Winnipeg, both by fans as well as I think everybody involved with the org.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, he came in, he identified the problems early, and he attacked them, right? I mean, it took him 2 years. I mean, last year, there was change. It was more than just coming in and saying, hey, the culture stinks and the defense doesn't play very well, and let's get our defense scoring a little bit more, whatever. He actually did a few of those things in the first year, right? Like, he started the change last or 2 Septembers ago, and now he's walking out the door knowing that this team's in a better place than it was, right? I mean, it's hard to, like, if you don't see it from day to day, maybe you don't always get to see it, but like I remember, we all remember that last press conference after, the season that they missed the playoffs there when Maurice left and Dave Lowry was the interim coach, and just the absolute
it was a mess.
crap show. Yeah. That whole thing was. And Bowness brought stability, right? I mean, he immediately took control of the team when he got here. He stripped Blake Wheeler of the captaincy, and he started to get this team playing from its own zone out, right? He turned Josh Morrissey into a Norris contender, right? I mean, and that's carried forward. Nobody had unlocked Josh Morrissey's offensive potential, something he showed in junior. All the way back, a decade ago. Nobody had unlocked that yet, and Rick Bowness came in and unlocked that. And I think he instilled an ability for this team to know, like, this is how you win in today's NHL. Did they get to where they want to go? No, but I think whoever comes in next will at least have a team that he can work with that sort of understands now this is the way that you have to play, right? And, losing to Colorado Avalanche like they did, a week and a bit ago now, I think that gives you a good. I think this team learned just being back in the playoffs, the last 2 years. Obviously, it didn't go their way, but they found a way to play a game, or they saw a way to play a game that's successful. And then, the last few years and just hadn't been like that before that. So. I think he did more good than bad. I don't think he really did any bad, really. I think he came to the end of his own rope,
season's
right?
ended. I mean,
yeah,
and I guess moving into the coaching search, Scott, I'll ask you this because, I mean, listen, Scott Arniel did a lot of really good things and was a part of a coaching staff that won 46 and then 52 games last year.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, I mean, from your perspective, when the organization is looking at the right guy to move forward, how do you separate an incredibly successful regular season with a playoff performance that wasn't even close to being at the level that this team and organization needs to be competitive before even thinking about beating a team like the Colorado Avalanche?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I'm not even sure that's necessarily a coaching thing. Well, it is. It's obviously part of a coaching thing, but I think this is also going to be something that the Jets have to figure out this summer in terms of player personnel. That they need to become a team that's built for the postseason. And some of that is just coaching, for sure it is, right? Like, I think it would be nice to bring in a coach, if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, that has experience in the postseason like that. But I mean, that being said, Rick Bowness also did, right? 3 seasons ago, he went to the Stanley Cup final with Dallas. He was with a bunch of teams that went through playoff runs as an assistant, right? So, I don't know. Like, this is such a weird spot for this organization, right? Because Scott Arniel is like the loyalty pick, right? I mean, you hired him, in my opinion, essentially for this, right? He was the succession to Rick Bowness's he was the heir to the throne, let's say. But I mean, you look at all the coaches that are out there right now, and there's a lot of big names, right? And there's a lot of names that are waiting in the wings, like a David Carl, for example, or a Ryan Warsofsky in San Jose. David Carl's the head coach of the University of Denver. who just won the Frozen Four again. So yeah, it's a weird spot to be in because this is a team that's been so loyal in the past, and to me, I wonder if Scott O'Neill's already feeling a little kind of miffed about this, because if he was the guy, like, wouldn't you worry if you were Scott O'Neill right now? Like, because why wouldn't you just name him on Tuesday or even Wednesday, right? You want to give this a couple days to breathe and bonus. Like, why wouldn't you name him already? Like, of course you should be doing your due diligence as an organization, but if Scott O'Neill was your guy, wouldn't he already be your guy? You know, and so that's the interesting part to me.
Well, I guess if you think that you're just, I mean, listen, if you were promised it already, but like that's just been speculation and conjecture on the part of people in the media and around. I mean, the Jets have never said that this was that. Like, listen, they obviously believe in
their
him.
hire. Like, that was their hire. Scott O'Neill was their hire for Rick Bowness's coaching staff, right? And then they just kind of kept the other guys that, well, no, they didn't keep a lot.
He was a candidate. I mean, he was a candidate 2 years ago for the job in the first place.
But I mean, I think it's a given that Scott O'Neill, at least, I mean, we could be wrong about this, but a team doesn't hire an associate coach like that and put him in that spot just for him not to move up, right? Like, and that's the only thing I got. But I mean, I just think there's too many big names out there right now. And who knows? There could be Rod Brind'Amour could be on the, you know, if the Rangers get swept, I don't know what they do with Rod Brind'Amour. I think it's crazy. That whole series to me is crazy right now. It's basically been a bit of a coin flip in my opinion, but whatever. And Sheldon Keefe's now on the market, right? Like, it's a very interesting time. So if you're the Jets, I'm interested. Like, I would love to know how they're balancing their whole loyalty idea, because that's what they've been, and I get that, with all the names that are on the market right now that you could possibly bring in here, and some that have playoff experience, right? Like Jared Gallant's been there. Craig Berube has won a Stanley Cup. Then you could go to a guy like Jay Woodcroft, who probably got the raw end of a deal in Edmonton, but they had to make a change after that bad start. But we look at Jay Woodcroft last year, and he had one of the best coaching records in the last couple of seasons, right? So
I don't know what's more impressive that Jay Woodcroft was able to do as well as he did in a short time with the Edmonton Oilers, or the fact that hockey team could play so bad on his watch that he could actually get fired with Connor McDavid and all those guys. Like, there's a bunch of interesting candidates out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, listen, Scott O'Neill shouldn't be miffed right now. I mean, any organization, when they're making a huge decision like that, needs to exhaust their options. And let's face it, he's in the driver's seat. He's at the front of the list. He's going to be a guy that probably has, I mean, I think everyone would agree, would have the inside track. But, I mean, there's a certain point where you still have to go and get the job. You still have to interview, and to the organization's defense, they have to see who else is out there, as we just talked about.
100%.
Now, here's the thing. There's a lot of names out there that, you know, we've talked about. I like Brind'Amour. I mean, listen, if Brind'Amour becomes available, I think that at minimum, Seattle, who's been very quiet over the last little bit, is going to back up a Brinks truck. Obviously, a former relationship with Ron Francis there. You know, I think Craig Berube is likely going to be going to Toronto. Like, the one thing I'll say is the Jets historically, while they have been a cap team, I mean, they have not been in the mix of paying the highest paid head coaches. So now, listen, that can change. That's you know, there's no cap
what I'm saying, right?
Thing.
Like, does that change though? So if you feel like you have a team right now and a core that just needs to get over a hump, right? And if you're a team that keeps saying that you're all in and all that sort of thing, you spend the money behind the bench now, right? Like, I wonder if that's the question that you have to now ask yourself. Okay, so you got away with paying Paul Maurice not as much as he probably is worth at the time. You got away with paying Rick Bowness, which, you know, if you would have got Barry Trotz. And here's the other thing, right? They were in on Barry Trotz. So how much money was Barry Trotz going to get, right? Like, obviously they didn't get him.
More than the other guys.
But that would have shown, so to me, that shows a willingness from this team to spend there if the right candidate is available, right? And so, yeah, I know we're not talking about, you know, as much about a guys like Berube or Brind'Amour, But I think you could woo a Brindamore here if you wanted to, right? I mean, Seattle could back up a Brinkstar, of course. That's not to say the Jets couldn't either. I don't think so. Here's the thing: you offer a guy like that. I think around here, that is your guy for the length of his contract, right? Like, I'd be very shocked if this team ever fired a guy that they gave a lot of money to, because one thing this team doesn't like to do, and we know that because they, how they never buy out anybody or anything like that. They don't like to pay people that aren't working for them. So yeah, but I mean, I think if you're looking at a guy like Jared Gallant or we're not saying Berube, but other guys, right? I mean, you could go for the cheaper options. I mean, Dean Evanson's there. I don't think he commands the same kind of money. I would be interested about, Todd McClellan, what kind of money he would, kind of have. But I think if you're a team that's serious about winning a Stanley Cup, and your window, let's talk about the window right now. The window is 3 to 4 years still, right? I mean, after these contracts kick in next year, you're going to get the best out of Mark Scheifele and the best out of Connor Hellebuck for, probably 4 years, I would suggest. That's your window. So if you're going to spend money at some point, now is probably the time. And if you feel like this team now just needs to reach that next year, right? They've been stuck in second or third or whatever. This team needs to get to fifth or sixth. Maybe part of that is head coaching. Part of that is a coach that comes in that wants to play younger players. I mean, you could probably, and this is the one thing about David Carl. David Carl said it's got to be worth his while to come, right? Well, worth his while to me means money, right? So, yeah, I'm interested to see how this goes, because I think a team that's serious about their contender and being a contender and being in the window. You look at these teams that are winning Stanley Cups, or at least they're paying them a lot of money, the coaching position, a lot of money to do that. So I'm curious. I'm curious to see what the Jets do about it.
I look at it as a little differently, just when we're thinking about the money aside.
Right.
Like, what the next coach that comes in here, what are they being tasked to do? Maintain a high level of play, build off the defensive systems that Bowness kind of instilled. Continue to be very competitive in the regular season.
Right.
But then be the steward of a team that raises their level of play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And again, you can play much better. There's no guarantee you're beating a team like Colorado. Like, this series could have been tighter, and the Jets still could have lost in 6 or 7. I'm not sure that there's one guy. Well, put it this way, never mind one guy. I think of, like, what are the qualities of a guy? Like, he just has to have done it before. He's won a cup. He's been on a staff. No. And you mentioned the younger players. Like, let's also think about the way this roster is going to be shaped in the next year or two, with some younger players coming in. Like, are you talking about a player that, has more, a coach that has more experience with transitioning players from the American Hockey League or junior to the National Hockey League? I mean, there's a lot that comes into it. And then obviously player relationships, respect, all of those sorts of things, which is something that I think Scott Arniel definitely has going for him, considering the job that he's done on this staff for the last couple of years and the results that they've had when Rick Bowness had been away, which is a very unique situation, having that little kind of a chance in advance to be sitting on the bench for a number of times, which, I mean, is quite rare in the National Hockey League.
But what do you? I agree with you. It's like totally. I wonder, like, if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff right now, what are you thinking? Are you thinking that, okay, like, are you sort of relieved that Rick Bowness retired because there was going to be a decision whether or not you fire him or not? Are you?
There's no way he's getting fired.
Maybe not, but are you?
He's up for the Jack Adams.
I get that, but this is a guy who couldn't get this team to perform in the playoffs. I mean, that is the reality of this, is it not? Like, we are at a point where he was a great, he's sort of like Bruce Boudreau, right? A great regular season coach that couldn't get his teams over the hump in the playoffs. This is not to take anything away from Rick Bowness, but if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff and you're looking at this with a critical eye, don't you have to look at, okay, so what was it that Rick Bowness couldn't do? Like, in his estimation, what was it that Rick Bowness couldn't do? And then is Scott Arniel just and this is no disrespect to Scott Arniel, but is he just an extension of Rick Bowness? And if that's the case, and you don't think that Rick Bowness was the guy that was going to get this team over the hump, then don't you have to look elsewhere?
No, why would we say that? Because, I mean, he's got an incredibly long career. Was here with the Moose. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's been with Bones for 2 years. I mean,
right, but
just because he's worked, I'll say this: just because he's worked on a guy's staff for 2 years, I don't think necessarily means that he's just an extension of the guy. In fact,
I'm not saying, but I'm not.
He would be the first one to say he's not.
I get that, but how much stock are you putting into his record with the Jets as a head coach, as an interim head coach, basically doing Rick Bowness's system, right? Like, we all heard from these guys, and even Scott Arniel himself, and of course, Arniel's going to be humble about it and whatever, but they didn't really play a different game under Scott Arniel.
Do we think this team is going to try and play a different game going forward? I don't know, right? I mean, that depends on what the head coach comes in and does, right? Like, I think there is obviously an idea that this team wants to play defense kind of first hockey, but we also know that that's sort of frustrated some of the offensive guys, right? I'm not saying that this team goes back to just being a run and gun type of team, hoping that when they're down 3-0, they win 4-3 because they just go nuts in the third period. But maybe there has to be a bit of a balance given the type of talent that you have on your team, right? I can imagine guys like Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele and the guys that are very offensive driven want to still use their offensive abilities and also, but I think there's been some learning. I think the gap has shrunk between what those guys think they need to do to win and what they actually need to do to win. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just curious to know what happens when they do this. And Scott Arniel, I mean, he wasn't given taking over the Columbus Blue Jackets 10 years ago, 13 years ago, however long it was, isn't a lot of, it's not like he had a lot of, he wasn't put in a position to succeed, let's just say. But I think as the Jets, I'm not sold entirely yet that Scott Arniel is the guy that puts them over the, and I think if the Jets were sold on that, he'd already be the head coach house. Like, I just don't know what they'd be waiting for. I don't know. I think that no matter what, in the eyes of the fan base in the market right now, and listen, I hope they are legitimately interviewing and trying to talk to as many people as they can. But even if they were 99.9% convinced that this was their guy and they had the plan and this is exactly what they wanted to do, I just think the optics of not even looking at anybody else would not be particularly good at this point. So I think you have to do your due diligence. Like, what's the harm in talking to some other people and getting some conversations?
I don't think there's harm. I just don't think it's a good thing for Scott Arniel, right? Like, I think if you're Scott Arniel, and I know you don't agree that he's miffed right now, I think 100% you're miffed. Like, I think 100% you're like, I thought I was hired here as associate coach, so when this happened, I was the next guy in line. And it's not like Rick Bowness was fired. So Rick Bowness sailed off in the sunset, retiring, and Scott Arniel was supposed to be the next guy, right? Like, I mean, I could be completely off on this, but the way that they hired him, this is a coach hiring that the Jets made, that Kevin Cheveldayoff would have made, that Mark Chipman would have had a hand in. Why else wouldn't he be the guy? Like, I don't understand why he wouldn't be the guy.
Probably will be, but I mean, just because you have that doesn't mean you miss out all of the other steps and make sure that you're doing it. And I think just for the confidence of your stakeholders, I mean, at a certain point, there's the easiest road and there's the path of least resistance.
Right.
But I think that, listen, just for confidence at the direction of the club, I mean, if the Winnipeg Jets go and interview 6 other qualified candidates,
right, and
come back and say, for a number of reasons, we really feel like we've got a guy that's been a big part of the improvement over the last couple of years, the culture. We think he, under his watch has, some changes that he'll make that will make us more better, can build off what it is. They do that. But if they just said, we don't want to even look at anybody else because we know this is the guy,
right?
I don't think that plays as well in the market.
And I just don't think you can go out into this head coaching carousel that there is right now with all these names in there and come back to your market now and say Scott Arniel's the guy for the team. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm not, again, this is no disrespect to Scott Arniel, but you rattle off the names, Huss, and you're like, some of these names are I've done a lot in this league. Some of these names have won Calder Cups in the AHL. Some of these names are the next wave of head coaches. I mean, David Carl's 35. It'll be the first time I've ever covered a coach that's younger than I am, right? Like, I mean, but this is sort of the thing for me. It's like the pool of available head coaches right now, there's a lot of experience, either at the NHL level, at the playoff level, at the junior level that would help. You know, a guy like David Carl has been named as a guy who is a relationship guy. He was a guy that gets the best out of these young players. That's his job.
Do you think a rookie head coach works with this team?
I think if it's the right rookie head coach, yeah. I don't think every rookie head coach is the right move. But I think some of the big names, I mean, there's only a couple of big names, like Ryan Warsofsky out of San Jose, he was just been the assistant there. And David
for an
Carlo,
organization, for a team that just won 52 games and fell short in the playoffs, and we're talking about getting over the hump in the playoffs, I think it is a bit of a strat. Like, to me, I'm thinking if that's what we're talking about, their focus, if it's not, I mean, listen, Arneal does have a lot of experience, but, you know, limited in the National Hockey League as a head coach.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at a guy that has actually done it before. And then, listen, I'm really high on Sheldon Keefe.
Yeah.
What the hell has Sheldon Keefe done in the playoffs other than disappoint year after year? Now, you can say that that's on the coach. You can say that's on the players. I've got my own thoughts on that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, all of these other guys have just been fired by other teams. I mean, it's not like it's Barry Trotz coming back into the mix and saying, you know what, maybe I will be a head coach. So,
sure.
I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting. And the thing is, there's so many open seats right now. And, you know, I think some guys are probably really good fits for some teams and others probably not at all. But let me ask you this. How long... Like, when would, if you had to look at the calendar and pick a date that there'll be a press conference for a new head coach, how far out do you think we're looking at for Winnipeg here? I think there's some teams that might be quicker. I'm not sure that that'll be the case here.
June 1st? Like, I mean, I think you want this guy in and at the draft with you, right? I think you
100%.
want this guy in and a part of free agent frenzy on July 1st, right? Like, I think that would be the case. Like, when did they hire Rick Bowness?
Canada Day.
Was it Canada Day? Yeah. But, I mean, at that point, okay. So they hired him then. But I don't think they want to wait that long. And I think, but here's the thing. If they're not going with Scott O'Neill, I think they have to be a lot more decisive, a lot quicker, right? We're at May 10th right now. And I think if you want some of these guys, I mean, we've already seen a couple of them go. I think was it Todd Nelson who went to Ottawa yesterday? Travis Green. Sorry, Travis Green went to Ottawa. I mean, I imagine the Devils and the Maple Leafs are going to be pretty quick on who they want. And maybe if it's Berube, they might have already made that decision and they're just kind of waiting here. That's only been a day, but. So, you know, some of these guys, but like eventually it's like anything on free agent frenzy or at the trade deadline, you start a couple of the big names go, and then there's this sort of, snowball effect where, you know, everybody wants to get in while the getting's good, right? So if it's not Scott O'Neill, I would suspect that, you know, once Berube goes even, you could start seeing, you know, some goes, because I think, you know, Sheldon Keefe's going to be here. If Saturday, if Brind'Amour is out, and then whatever they do with Brind'Amour, if they're not going to pay him what he wants there and his staff, and you know, if you get swept in the second round by the Rangers, not a good look. So there could be some big changes there. But I imagine that, if you're the Jets, I mean, it's a good spot to be in for the next week, maybe, or maybe even just over the weekend. But then I got to think that some of these teams are really going to start trying to put the full press on and try and make some of these signings.
It's for sure as interesting a coaching market as we've seen in the league in a long, long time. Hey, listen, before we go, all right, good stuff with Billeck. We caught up with her a little earlier, and you know, we were talking about that Dangle report of the 3-on-3 hockey that was rumored to be financed by the Saudis. Well, we have an update from Steve Dangle just in the past 20 minutes. Yesterday, I posted a video reporting on a new 3-on-3 hockey league in North America. Today, I have received several concerning reports that raise doubts about several of the facts contained in the report and decided to delete the report on all platforms. So 2.5 million views later, it's gone. And who knows whether we'll ever hear of this again. But anyways, there's just a little update for you that we're around earlier when we were talking about it. We're going to talk Bombers and CFL coming up. And then we'll get into Marbles registration. But hey, it's Friday, so let's raise a glass to the weekend. Today's WST, and always sponsored by Generic Lager from Little Brown Jug. Your basic lager, just better. Little Brown Jug made the taste you crave with the name that says it all with this impressively standard lager. Whether you're at a Bomber game or Gold Eyes game this summer or watching from home, grab a cold one and cheers. You can grab it in all the Little Brown Jug favorites in the Exchange District at 336 William Avenue, at your local LC or vendor, and now available at all your local sporting events. And speaking of those sporting events, Princess Auto Stadium is busy because the Bombers are back, rookie camp finishing up, and training camp getting underway. And, of course, our friends at Princess Auto proudly sponsoring the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And, of course, the big Canada Day celebration this year, Monday, July 1st. Canada Day is back at Princess Auto Stadium, a massive free festival celebrating our country, including incredible entertainment by the likes of Sam Roberts Band and Doc Walker. Make your plans to join Winnipeggers and Manitobans coming together at Princess Auto Stadium on July 1st. In the meantime, you can pop by and see Princess Auto on Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and you can always shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. The weather is going to be gorgeous this weekend. Get outside and make the most of it. And that might take a quick trip over to Royal Sports, Manitoba's #1 sports superstore, with the biggest and best selection of licensed team gear featuring the Jets, Bombers, NHL, NFL, tons of new Major League Baseball gear just in time for the start of the season. And the spring stock is arriving daily with soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, running equipment, and a huge selection of bikes as well. Make a point of getting down to Royal Sports today, 750 Pembina Highway, and follow them on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Pembina. And hey, 2 more great games in the playoffs tonight. Vancouver, Edmonton late. Boston Pizza is the place for fans to team up for the Cup for playoffs. You pop down there for the game. Big screens, big sound. New playoff menu, including wing flights, the Sicilian square footer pizza, jalapeno popper dip, and other great prizes and giveaways, including your chance to win a grand prize trip for 2 to the Stanley Cup final. Get your gang and bring your crew to watch the playoffs tonight at Boston Pizza. All right, keep an eye on the chat over the next little bit. Michael Remis will open up Marbles registration in 5 minutes or so. But let's welcome in John Hodge from 3 Down Nation because the CFL is back. What's going on, John? How are you?
I'm doing well, Huss. I'm a little under the weather, so hopefully I'm not wheezing too loudly for your listeners.
No, you're looking good. You're sounding good. And hey, listen, we're ready to go for Bomber main training camp. But listen, just before we get into the Bombers, the opening of training camps has basically been completely overshadowed by the story in the CFL really over the last few months, but it's really come to a head this week with Chad Kelly, the minimum 9-game suspension, along with a number of things he needs to do to get back on the field with his team. And yet there he was on the field with his team at the beginning of rookie camp. And I know you guys, the 3 Down Nation, have covered this extensively. A scathing public statement from Ryan Marcoux from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Christina Constable, who works in the league office, with similar sentiments. This is an absolute mess, John. And I have to say, there's probably no one in the league with more goodwill amongst the Canadian Football League fans and fan base than Michael Pinball Clemens. I think he might have used up all of it and then some yesterday with his statements. I mean, what have you learned about all of this, and how is this resonating within the other parts of the league?
This was one of the worst press conferences I think I've ever seen. And kudos, by the way, it took place at the University of Guelph, where the Argonauts are hosting training camp. Kudos to the reporters who were there. I thought that Pinball was asked very strong, pointed, warranted questions. My colleague Justin Dunk was there. He was one of the reporters who were asking questions about this matter. And I think for the past few months, the chatter around the CFL is the Argonauts are not going to be able to keep Chad Kelly. Obviously, this was his first strike in the CFL, but he has several strikes from previous stints. He was kicked off a high school football team. He was kicked off a high-profile college team. He's been arrested multiple times. He's not a choir boy. We knew this when he came to the CFL. But once the lawsuit was filed, and he filed his defense denying almost everything that was alleged in the original lawsuit from the Toronto Argonauts' former strength and conditioning coach, the CFL, in levying the minimum 9-game suspension, might be the longest one in CFL history, has come out and said they have unequivocal evidence that much of this harassment did take place. Now, nothing's been tested in court, but to me, the most surprising thing through all this was not the suspension. It's been the Toronto Argonauts, what I would call blatant naivete as to the reaction to this. Like, it was almost like Pinball was surprised. People were upset that Kelly was at practice. It's almost like in that building they thought, wow, 9-game suspension, that's a lot worse than we thought. Surely this will have people forgetting about the problems and moving on. No. Simultaneously, and by the way, Pinball, I made some notes here because I don't want to get this wrong. He simultaneously at one point said he wasn't going to be approving or disapproving of the penalty that Chad Kelly got. But then in a later answer called it very harsh. So he seems to be talking out of both sides of his mouth when it comes to the suspension. When it comes to the harassment itself, he called it an issue and a situation. Now, I'll give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt in that I'm sure he's been advised by MLSE lawyers not to call it harassment or not call it anything that could potentially hurt the team's position in what is still an ongoing lawsuit. But to say, well, all workplaces have this, and here's a list of women who have had a good experience with the Toronto Argonauts, it just really rang hollow. And I didn't think the whole thing was a mess from Pinball. I liked some of what he said about, being good enough is not good enough and we want to get better, but he also failed to illustrate almost any examples of how the team is going to get better. And he failed to realize what was, in my opinion, the most important thing, which is that by trotting Chad Kelly out there, yeah, the CFL lets you have players who are suspended at practice. He didn't realize that is probably the first and most important thing you could do is say, hey, in honor of Chad going through these processes, because it is a 9-game minimum suspension, he's going to have to complete some counseling and some things to get back on the field. You could say, and in the meantime, to let him focus on this, we are going to have him step away from the team, and we're going to be working with them behind the scenes while our other quarterbacks get the priority at rookie camp, at training camp. He didn't do that, and again, seemed to be genuinely surprised that people were upset that Chad was there. I fully agree with you, Huss. It's hard to find anybody in the CFL with a bad word to say about Pinball. I've talked to him in formal and informal settings. He seems like a wonderful, wonderful man, but he lost, I think, a lot of his clout yesterday. It was a bad press conference, and the Toronto Argonauts are a mess right now.
Listen, it was a completely blown opportunity. Many people were saying that, the respect for the situation maybe should have dictated a legitimate press conference indoors, not at the sidelines, in the middle of, some random, May practice at the beginning of the year.
Well, you know why it was yesterday, though? You know why? It's because what happened in Maple Leafs country. That's why.
Good timing.
That's why they had the press conference yesterday. And if you put it at the side of a field, it makes it seem like less of a big deal. That's my speculation, I should say. I didn't have anybody in MLSE confirm for me that was the case, but I'm pretty sure the firing.
I think your hunch is pretty good on that.
That's why they did it yesterday and not day one of camp, which was actually Wednesday. They waited to fire the coach of the local NHL team and then said, okay, Pinner, go out there, do your best damage control. Good luck to you.
Well, considering everything that's being said from females that are working in the league, the reaction around, where do the Argos go from here? And what do you think does Chad Kelly play again in the Canadian Football League?
Oh, that's a tough question. The reality is Chad's been given $300,000 already, right? He signed a deal partway through last season that was going to make him the highest paid player in the CFL in 2024. Come January, and this is very common in the CFL, he renegotiated the deal, flipping what was going to be a higher salary into a large signing bonus. And that, though he took a little bit less money against the cap, he's actually the second highest paid player behind Zach Collaros, technically. He did that so that against taxes, he has a higher net income, which again is very common for veteran CFL players to do. The issue is that puts the team in a situation where they're now, again, $300,000 in with this guy, $100,000 of his compensation package, which totals around $585,000, is actually in marketing money. So it does not count against the cap. So the Argos are in a situation where they're saying, hey, we've got an MOP quarterback, and for the approximately $485,000 he's due on the cap this year, we've already given him $300,000. Like we're basically 2/3 into our cost this year for Chad Kelly. Oh, and by the way, if we decide to move on from him, there's nobody available right now, right? Like the best option would probably be Jeremiah Masoli via trade from the Ottawa Red Blacks. But Jeremiah has not really played football in 2 years, right? He's barely played due to 2 very severe injuries he sustained in Ottawa. And secondly, he's not going to be healthy for the start of training camp. The last update we got from Bob Dice is he might be healthy for week 1, but you never know. This is a man who is not dissimilar to Kirk Cousins. He's in his mid-30s and he's coming off a torn Achilles. That is easier said than done. So does he play again? I think the Argos have hung their hat on Chad Kelly for 2024, but I have spoken to people who think that he is done, who thinks that this will be one way or another, whether he fails to meet the requirements from the CFL in order to be reinstated, or whether simply the Argos or somebody in that building finally says, let's just pull the pin and cut loose this complete headache of an individual who has caused irreparable damage to our reputation in this community, in this league. That's also possible. So I'd say if he does play, it's probably just 2024. That'd probably be my guess, but that is a guess, Huss. There are people I've talked to who think that he will never play another CFL game.
Well, this story certainly isn't going away anytime soon, and it'll be discussed throughout the preseason. But camps are opening around the league, including right here in Winnipeg. We had fun with Milt at the start of rookie camp. Now it's time for everybody to get to work. John, when you're heading out to Princess Auto, what are the most intriguing storylines of Blue Bomber camp, in your opinion, heading into tomorrow?
Well, I've got an article up at 3 Down breaking down 7 different battles, and it's kind of interesting, right? There have been years in the past where it's like, wow, okay, so we're doing a big old training camp, and 22 of the 24 starting spots are taken. So this is not going to be a super compelling training camp, right? There are some camps across the country where there's 12 jobs that are up for grabs. Winnipeg, that number has been traditionally very low, at least for the last certainly 3-4 seasons. This year, there's more, right? I've got 3 on offense. We've got right tackle, obviously, vacated by Jermarcus Hardrick. Left guard, vacated by Jeff Gray. Rasheed Bailey, no longer in the receiving core. That's 3. There's 3 on defense. Obviously, Jackson Jeffcoat and Ricky Walker Jr., their spots on the D-line are open. And Demiro Houston's spot is open at boundary corner. To me, the most interesting one would probably be the cornerback position. And the reason is this. I think the Bombers have a starting caliber player on the roster right now. The catch is that he's Canadian, and teams traditionally don't like playing Canadians at corner. That's Tyrell Ford out of the University of Waterloo. Was a second-round pick to this team in 2022, spent the 2023 season with the Green Bay Packers before getting cut. And to me, this is a guy who has NFL-level measurables. He is one of the fastest players in the CFL, bar none. He is, of course, by the way, the twin brother of Edmonton Elks quarterback Trey Ford, and is somebody who only started 1 game as a rookie, but I thought was sensational. And the Bombers have shown, whether it's Brady Oliveira at running back, whether it's Reddick Ramsey, a product of Université de Montréal Carabins, at strong side linebacker, they're happy to play Canadians at spots where other teams maybe shy away a little bit. So they've also got like 75 or something ridiculous defensive backs who are rookies in camp. I think it's 17 Americans who are rookie Americans. But I'm really excited to see if Tyrell Ford gets a shot because I think he earned it.
Well, and I mean, you mentioned, I mean, this is not a guy that's just here because he was a late pick and gets a chance to come to rookie camp. This is a guy that, listen, he was with the Packers for a year. I mean, they obviously saw something in him, a high pick, and bottom line, an incredible athlete. As we've seen, his brother's got some pretty good chops at the QB position as well. In some ways, it reminds me a little bit of, what was it, 3 or 4 years where the Bombers brought in like 20 DBs. And of course, we got D'Alford, Dietrich Nichols came out of that group. I'm sure there will be a few players that become household names to Bomber fans this season that we'll be seeing and hearing about really for the first time this weekend.
It will be very exciting. I will also quickly, before I move on from Tyrell, throw out the fact that he had, I can't remember if it was a punt return touchdown in his first 2 games at Waterloo, or he had 2 punt return touchdowns in his first game at Waterloo. Like, he only returned a very short amount for the Warriors because he was so valuable as a defensive back. But he's somebody who I hope gets a look in the return game, which is another spot, of course, with
big time with no Janarian Grant.
Exactly.
What did you make of O'Shea's comments about Janarian Grant this week?
Well, I mean, reading between the lines, between what Coach said and between what Kyle Walters said, it makes it seem like Janarian's just kind of not communicative right now. And I mean, we don't know what all these guys do in the off season, what type of lives they lead in the off season. So I don't want to speculate, but they certainly don't seem to be expecting that Janarian will be back anytime soon. I've interviewed Janarian a number of times. Very nice guy. A little bit of a different cat. And to be frank, when you weigh 170 pounds and you make your living running as fast as you can into a wall of people, you probably have to be a little bit of a different cat to do that, right? And Janarian was as good at doing that as any player I think we've seen in the CFL in the last decade. And if last year was his last year, I guess hopefully we can just remember him for that unbelievable return he had at Mosaic Stadium in I think it was week 2 against the Riders, where he broke about 13 tackles, which is wild because there's only 12 players on the field to score a punt return touchdown. But in terms of who else I'm excited to see, I'm really excited. And maybe it's just because I'm an offensive line nerd, but some of these offensive tackles they've brought in, because obviously Jamarcus Hardrick's gone. I do think Eric Lofton will have the inside track. He was on Winnipeg's PR in 2012. He made 14 starts with the Riders this past season. But some other guys I want to highlight really quickly. Kendall Randolph went to Alabama and drew rave reviews from then head coach Nick Saban, arguably the greatest head coach in college history. He never really had a full-time starting position. He started at guard, he started at tackle, he started at tight end a bunch of games, but was mostly a depth player. Saban was unbelievably complimentary of what Randolph did in practice. To me, if you're a utility guy who's kind of positionless in college, but has, athleticism and has, the heart of a champion, like Nick Saban described, the CFL sounds like a really good place for you. And so I'm excited to see what he does. And the other two, Khalil Keith out of Baylor and Larnell Coleman, who's a former NFL draft pick. Larnell Coleman, reportedly, again, I've been unable to attend anything at the stadium due to illness. In this COVID era, we're trying not to get other people sick. But Coleman apparently got most of the reps at right tackle. I actually see Larnell Coleman as the long-term potential replacement for Stanley Bryant as a pass blocker off the left tackle spot. Khalil Keith actually reminds me a little bit of Jamarcus Hardrick as a bit of a mauler in the run game. But we'll see. I mean, it's obviously a super important position. Jamarcus Hardrick got $230,000 to leave Winnipeg and go to Riderville. You can't blame him for that. But the Bombers are going to have to figure things out, because if the right side of that offensive line isn't working and Zach Collaros gets hurt, fans in this city are not going to be happy.
No doubt about that. John, listen, can't wait to talk Bombers and CFL with you throughout the season. Fill people in on what you, Dunk, and the rest of the 3 Down staff have heading into training camps opening around the league.
Right now, we're working through our highest paid series. We've got all the offensive positions done. So if you want to see how the Bombers stack up, it's an interesting year for the Bombers, I will say. Number 1 paid quarterback, number 1 paid running back, and 3 of the top 4 paid receivers league-wide. Now, offensive line, they don't have anybody in the top 12. D-line, they've only got 1 on the list. So obviously, they are investing their money in more different ways, let's say, than they have in the past. But they have done a nice job of keeping this core together. So if you're interested in, obviously, the Chad Kelly situation, we've got more coming there. And we've also got our highest paid series, which I think people are really interested in because there's always some surprises as to guys who are on the list, guys who are not on the list, guys who are up and coming, guys who have taken pay cuts. So I'm excited for our readers and viewers to check that out.
Well, excited for the upcoming season. And thanks as always, John, for jumping on. We'll look forward to having you back on Winnipeg Sports Talk real soon.
Thanks for having me, Huss. Anytime.
3 Down Nation is where you'll find all of John's work. Justin Dunk and the great staff doing the best job around of covering the Canadian Football League and much more when it comes to pigskin. All right, Marbles is open. I see comment asking about Jeff Gray. Jeff Gray remains unsigned. So, I mean, he's a free agent right now. He does not have a contract with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We'll see whether that changes at any point during camp. But thanks again to John for coming on. And, man, like this month, there's so much going on. We got the Assiniboia Downs kicking off on Monday, May 20th. Cannot wait for another season of live racing. Remis and I will be firing away our best bets on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays throughout the year. But now's a great time to plan ahead and get one of those coveted spots in the clubhouse for a night of live racing and taking advantage of the incredible cuisine at Assiniboia Downs, including that world-famous prime rib buffet. Again, May 20th is opening day. We'll look forward to seeing you out. Well, actually, we'll be doing an Assiniboia Downs event as well for WSTers, so hopefully you can join us as well. A shout-out to our friends at the Winnipeg Goldeyes, who unfortunately did not win their first game of the season. Tough loss last night to Cleburne. Logan Watkins going back to where he was the coach, who was the manager last year. But the team is shaping up real well. A very tough place to start against a loaded Cleburne team. But the fish will be back, and the home opener is May 21st. Go to goldeyes.com right now for ticket package information as well as group information, including renting one of the 2 new patio decks. There's a 90-person deck, a 110-person deck, brand new, right by Craft Beer Corner, and we'll be having a WST patio party there very soon coming up as well. And I got to give a shout-out to Trevor Curl from the Goldeyes, who's on the road with the club. Great work on the socials. Really easy to be able to stay up to date on what's happening with the team. So make sure you're following the Goldeyes on all of your favorite social channels. Shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. They are underway with the 2024 fishing season. Cannot wait to get out there later on this year. If you are looking for a world-class fly-in fishing experience where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is the place. And as incredible as the world-class fishing is, the hospitality from Pitt, Pat, and the Terren family and the Aikens team might be even better. Booking well into the summer right now. Find out remaining availability today and all the information on options for an Aikens experience at aikenslake.com, and check them out on all of these social channels. Quickly over to our Breezy Bend golf report. Going to get out to Breezy on Sunday. The course is in a mint shape. Cannot wait for it. We got Xander Schauffele on a bit of a heater right now at the Wells Fargo. Xander is leading at 12 under par. Jason Day in second at 7th. Colin Morikawa and Rory McIlroy, 6 shots back of Xander at 6. Oh, and Morikawa's now at 5 repeatedly. Our boy Taylor Pendrith, Coolbet guy, winner last week on tour. He's 4 under, still in the top 10. And, of course, Pendy got into this event because he won last week. No cut. They'll play right through until Sunday. Of course, if you want more information on a potential long-term home for you and your family at an incredible private club, Breezy Bend is the spot. Go to breezybend.ca for more information on membership options and bookings for events like weddings. All right, we're going to get to marbles in just a few minutes. Let me quickly take a look at our cool bet lines. And tonight we've got 2 games in the National Hockey League. The Panthers are in Boston. Florida -129. Boston +110 home dogs. I think Boston's going to have a ton of energy coming out of that game too. Can't wait for the start of this game. And I actually think I'm leaning Boston tonight as the home dog at +110. And then a very similar line for Oilers Canucks, -129 for Edmonton and +109 for the Vancouver Canucks. They've got some great options for tonight's games in the Cool Bet exclusives. Check the lock shop. Patty's got a little parlay as well that's boosted up to +300. And you can get all of the series prices available as well if you're thinking on getting one side or another to win the actual series. NBA playoffs tonight. Nuggets got to have it. Down 2-0 in Minneapolis to take on the Timberwolves. T-Wolves -164 faves. The Nuggets +140. Indy, a big 7-point favorite and -286 at home against the Knicks, who are up 2-0. Interesting line here. They obviously expect a big bounce back from the Indiana Pacers. The Knicks +230 and 7-point underdogs tonight. NBA futures all up as well. We've got PWHL playoffs continuing. Toronto up 1-0. They are -227 favorites tonight against the Minnesota club. And by the way, shout out to the gang down at Next Door at 116. For any of you that are big women's hockey supporters or really into the PWHL, they're putting the women on every night with the sound. So if you're looking for a spot that's supporting women's hockey, get down to Next Door, 116 Sherbrooke. And I think we're going to do a little watch party with Liz Hood for the first game of the finals. Liz is going to join us on Tuesday. We'll have more details on that next week. Again, if you haven't played a cool bet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. All right, last call for marbles. We'll fire them up in just a minute. Remis is going to grab the names right now. So if you haven't put in, this is your last call for it. And just before we get to marbles, we're talking about the upcoming Bomber season. We're already planning for a great Labor Day excursion. Going to be involved in a tour called The Crew, and figured we'd let some of you know about that and getting in on it before it fills up with our pal Jeffrey Bannon organizing The Crew. Here it is.
JB, what's good, buddy? How are you?
Phenomenal, Andrew. Thanks for having us.
You know, I had said before, back in the day, Gary and I ran a couple buses for the show out to Labor Day, and it was so much fun. I've done a number of bus tours to Labor Day before, and I thought about maybe doing one for WST, but there's a lot goes into it. So when you called and asked if I wanted to be a part of the crew trip, I was like, this actually sounds perfect. Things are rolling for Labor Day already for the crew. I want WSTers to know about what's going on, because I think some of them might want to join us for what should be an incredible weekend in Labor Day. Fill us in on just putting it together first off.
Well, as you know, I worked for the Bombers for 10 years, and I was on the outside looking in, obviously the responsible employee. And for those 10 years, we never won. So we would go as staff, and, you know, you see there, and then, you know, walking out of the arena and all the Rider fans were chanting, was it worth the trip? You know, inside my head, I'm like, well, I'm getting paid, so it was worth the trip. But then you realize that you want to be part of the fan base. You want to be what everyone else wants to be to enjoy it. And then the concepts through working is, okay, so this concept is built for the fans by the fans, and we just want to create an experiential trip where fans are going to want to come back each and every year. And we thought, we have the experience, join with people like yourself, and how can we just it's not just about going on the bus, it's about living the entire weekend, having a lot of refreshments, being responsible, and then watching the Bombers beat the Riders, which will be the icing on the cake.
You know, and I say this to people, I mean, friends, especially friends from outside of Winnipeg that ask us, you know, about, the scene around the Bomber games looks so great. I mean, to me, the greatest day in the CFL, well, there's two. I mean, I'll put the Banjo Bowl right up there because it has really grown over the last few years to sort of rival what happens in Regina. But that game on Sunday on Labor Day weekend, to me, is what the Canadian Football League is all about. And, you know, it adds in a lot of ways like a college feel or atmosphere to a weekend that, you know, honestly, as fun as the rivalry is between the Riders and the Bombers on the field, getting everybody together over the course of the weekend, there really isn't anything like it. And, you know, we've seen that grow, and really the demand both for tickets and getting on these sort of junkets has increased as well. So bottom line is, if you can do it and do it with a great bunch of people, that is first and foremost, and win or lose, it's a great time. So you guys have put together something for fans. I'm going to be hosting one of the buses, so certainly if people are looking to get in on it, they can get in on maybe our WST group from there. But fill people in on what you guys have put together and how people can get involved.
Yeah, so obviously just hit our socials right now. So obviously at the crew, we're at Instagram, social, and Facebook. And the best way is just drop us a message or DM, and we'll send you the information package via email. We have payment plans available. You can go double, quad, and you know, with my background, we're going to have maybe the best merch package available. So pulling all my resources from the CFL and NFL, and then obviously it's just the experience, right? Like I said, we're going to feed you breakfast when you get on the bus. Stop in Brandon, but once again, it's going to be an event that you want to be part of. And we just sent the deposit in yesterday for the Riders, and the Riders called us and said, if you don't send us money in, tickets are going. And then we asked if we could sit beside the other bus tours as well. So there's going to be a whole group of us together that's going to take over Mosaic, and I think that's the only way to do it.
And obviously once there, I mean, we'll get everybody there, but there'll be some good times for everyone. And obviously, hey, if you got other things to do, or you want to meet a friend, you can take off. But there's going to be, you'll have some programming throughout the weekend. I think we should just leave it at that.
100%. So we'll have a VIP night Saturday night. So we'll set up, so beverages and appetizers will be on us. And then if you can make the brunch Sunday morning, we're not holding you to it. But brunch will be there, and then we'll take the bus over to Wayne's World. And this is Wayne's World's 20th anniversary. So that party before the game will be one of epic proportions, and then it'll carry over to the game. And then for those of us that are left standing after the game, we'll continue the party.
Yeah, no, listen, there needs to be a big victory tour of Regina after that game. We went through a long time where it was a quiet walk back to the hotel for Bomber fans. Hopefully not anymore, but it really will be fun. So listen, if you're with us on YouTube right now, you can see the link at the 1930 crew. 1930, the number, is on Instagram. I'm not on, so is it the same thing on Facebook? I know a lot of
Facebook, and Tara hooked us up on Twitter too as well. So we're on all three platforms, and then we're ready to go.
So I guess best way is just for folks, if they're interested, send a DM, and they can get all the information on it, and then they get set up, reserve some spots, and probably going to be doing a promo in the show for something with our friends at Coolbet on that in the coming months. But as with anything, get a deposit in and get your spot right now, because as we know, the second the Bombers get going, more and more people are going to be thinking about Labor Day, and next thing you know, it'll be full.
That's the plan, and as we continue to grow, maybe next year is 3 buses, 4 buses. So it's like the Banjo Bowl right now, Labor Day is almost sold out, so we're lucky we got some tickets. And
bombing's coming on this one as well?
Yeah, bombing, and then Carter Chan, and then we have, DDP, the sports doctor. So we're going to make sure that the buses are lively and they're entertaining. And then until everyone tells us to quiet because they want to take a nap, and then we'll be ready to go.
Well, I listen, I'm really looking forward to it. There is really nothing like the Bomber Brigade heading out west for Labor Day weekend. Again, on all your socials, check out the 1930 crew. Fire a message in, get in on it, and hopefully we can be having a great time. And all smiles on Monday on the way back from Regina after a big Bomber win. JB, all the best. Thanks for jumping on today, and really looking forward to Bomber season and hanging out with you and a great group for Labor Day weekend.
Thanks, gentlemen. Have a great weekend, everyone.
All right, good stuff. Thanks to Jeffrey for jumping on. And if I see a lot of interest in the chat, and I'm not surprised if you're listening on the podcast, it's just on Instagram or X or Facebook at the 1930 crew. Just hit them up, get you the details, and tell them you want to be on, as it's been termed in chat, the Hus Bus. I have a feeling we could probably just take over one of the buses for the trip from people just from Winnipeg Sports Talk. So thanks to Jeffrey. Let's go. Labor Day. It's on. There's nothing more fun than that weekend in Regina every year, especially now that the Bombers have been winning their fair share of games as opposed to what we went through for the 14 years prior. So anyways, looking forward to making that happen. And hopefully you guys will jump on. But as I say, don't wait. Just get a deposit in and reserve your spot. All right, we're going to get to marbles right away. I'm just looking outside. It is so nice out. And what do we got for a quick WST weather update while Remis gets everything ready? 19 right now, high of 20 today. Perfect. Going up to 27 tomorrow. A chance of showers at some point, but I think it's going to be mostly nice. Anyways, I mentioned off the top, I was at the beer can last night. Just got a message to the guys. If you missed it, I mentioned it earlier. Head on down to the beer can for a couple outdoors. Try the food there. It's amazing. But when you go up for your first beer, tell the bartender that Hustler sent you. And the first 20 WSTers that do that, the first one is going to be on us and our friends at the beer can. All right, Reem, how close are we ready to go? Do we need to get into these Utah names? Or I've sort of been avoiding this because so many of them were so bad. But it is interesting that they're still crowdsourcing opinions on all of the names. The one that stuck out to me that I hope that they go with, that I know I said Blizzard earlier. I've now come around. I'm down with the Utah Outlaws.
Yeah, here's the names. Shout out to TSN for putting out this graphic, Huss. We got Venom, Ice, Freeze, Fury, Blizzard, Blast, Mountaineers, Caribou, Frost, Outlaws, Canyons, Mammoth, HC, Glaciers, Squall, Powder, Hive, Yeti, Swarm, Black, Diamonds. We haven't touched on these. I like Yeti. I like Mammoth. I like Powder.
Yeti's pretty corny. Like, it sounds cool right now, but would it be good in 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I don't know. I like the one thing, though. My favorite logo ever is the Colorado Avalanche Yeti foot logo, which they don't use anymore. So maybe if they stole that logo, I would be very, very in. What's the other one on this page? Venom is okay. Outlaws, maybe. I'm not sure. So we'll see what they go with. They're going to have their jersey say Utah on it. And it sounds like, I think it was someone reported, maybe Greg Wyshynski, that they're going to have a Utah jersey says Utah, not the NHL Shield logo at the draft, like Mark Scheifele wore. So that kind of...
Yeah, Scheifele's is still the one of one.
Yeah.
It's still the one of one. Whoever gets picked 6th overall will get a Utah jersey. And listen, the Utah jerseys will be collector's items because they'll wear them for 1 year. And then they'll announce a name and launch it the next season and do it twice. So maybe not such a bad idea for our friends at Utah. As I said, I vote Outlaws. If you want to, you got to put an email in, but you can vote too. Ryan Smith put that out. All right, let's do some marbles to finish off the week. And before we do the race, we got to welcome in marbles time with the one and only Tristan Rivers music. Fire it up.
It's Friday. Another week of work's gone by. You deserve to treat yourself. Maybe an ice cream kick or a bottle of rye. On the whole day in, so lax you can't deny. Why use effort even for pleasure? Give blind luck a try. It's time to do a marble race. No skill separating best to worst. Marble race. Just type marbles with the punctuation first. Marble race. Don't spam or you will suffer. Oh, let's play marble race. Get to your mark before it's too late. Set, go.
MC Stormy on the Huss Bus. Do we sing the marble song? We might sing the marble song. We might sing a lot of songs. Hopefully more about the Blue Bombers. All right, let's do this marble race and then crack a generic and get on with the weekend. Maybe head down and grab one of those free beers at the beer can if you say that Hustler sent you. What do we got today, Reem? I heard Remis behind the scenes testing out some tracks, and he seemed to be excited about the one that we've got for today.
Man, I looked through so many until I found a good one, and I already forgot the name. So I'm glad I wrote it down. It's called Storm. This is why I write them down, because I have found good ones and I forget them right after. It's called
all that hard living early in your year. Your short-term memory shot.
Well, I'm just doing so much stuff here.
I know. I'm joking.
I don't know. They got crazy names. This one's called Stormy Rough Street.
Stormy Rough Street.
Let me just make sure I load the correct one and double check. And I put you in there. I gave one to Rick Bonus, honorary.
Yeah, you got to give one for Bones, a farewell.
And I gave one to the newest member of the Winnipeg Sea Bears, Byron Mullen.
Beautiful.
Great.
It's a 7-foot marble coming into the race.
Yeah.
Watch out for that one.
Watched that conversation yesterday, and if you missed any conversations this week, I'm putting a link in the chat for our mailing list. We put out a great compilation of some awesome conversations this week. You know, with the Jets out, hit a number of topics like draft lottery, great with Chris Peters, Bombers with John and Darren earlier, Jets. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, kind of quieted down with the Jets game-wise, but certainly not when it comes to news, the offseason, and everything moving forward. And again, obviously no Jets this week, but, very soon, I think we'll see some more kind of coming out of the weekend content with Connor Rabchak and more. So, yeah, sign up for the mailing list. Great way to find out about all of our contests and giveaways as well. Do not miss out by getting on there. All right, we're doing the Stormy Daniels run today, Remis.
Yes, Stormy Rough Street.
Sorry,
Stormy. I thought Stormy, like MC Stormy in chat, but you're saying like Stormy Daniels. Could be.
Stormy had quite a day in court yesterday, I read.
Did you see the drawing? Remember the Tom Brady court photo? They did one of her. Looked like Dwight Schrute from The Office. I don't know if you're familiar.
I'm familiar with Dwight. I am familiar. I don't watch a lot of movies, but I am familiar with The Office, and that probably doesn't sound like a very flattering picture. Nevertheless, let's go. Winner gets a custom special WST hoodie that you can only get by winning the marble race. It's our version of the green jacket. Good luck to everybody. Let's go. The Stormy Rough Street, new track, marbles on WST on Friday. Ooh, I like this start. This is cool.
Man, I tested so many, and then right off the bat, I'm like, I found it. This is the one.
Right on. All right. First marbles out of the initial apparatus. Instant Noodles. VR Montenegro. What's up, VR? Lock Shop regular. Sam Crow. Part of the bloodline of WST. What's up, Sam Crow? There's VR. JW in here as well. Derek Schmidt. First out of the gate. Winnipeg Gabriel Vivaldi. What's up, WGV? Carrio, there's lots of back and forth on this one. Oh, WST legend T. Konopali in the mix right now. But it looks like Corio has the lead. Sam Crow and T. Konopali right behind. Who will be the first one down? It's T. Konopali has the lead. It's been a minute since we've seen T. Konopali really contending in a marble race. But T. Kona is there. Sam Crow, though, first up. Here we go. This is one of these. Oh, Sam Crow actually did get out quite nicely and has a bit of a lead. Is going to be getting a bit of room over the rest of these marbles that are coming through. Dave McLean, Jeff, and T. Kona all in the mix right now, but looks like Dave McLean's first through going into this next funnel, or tube, I should say, into. Is this a funnel? What is this?
I don't know what that is.
It's like a funnel with some holes. Sam Crow's now in the lead. Ray in second, and Dave McLean. Sort of a 3-horse race right now. Jeff Dorian trying to get back in the mix. But Sam Crow, a very slight lead. And now going into this is a wild funnel. This really is a wild course, Remis. You were not joking today.
Oh, look at that thing.
Corkscrew thing.
Oh, this is crazy.
All right, nobody is in yet. Looks like Ray. Ray's skipped the line. It could be Ray coming for it. Ray at the line. Ray, another first-time winner on WST. The Yak Man, second in. Oh, look at Phyllis. Strong performance by Phyllis today. Johnny T.I., T. Conapoli, top 5. Nicely done. Dave McLean, Sam Crow, Dale Rerezik, Russ Logan, and Donnie Ray, the top 10 in Stormy's Rough Street. Wow, Remis, that one had a little bit of everything. Some very unique obstacles that we haven't really seen before in that one.
That spitting corkscrew at the end, preventing everyone to go up the final elevator shaft to the finish. I've never seen that. Really, it was started knocking everyone around. So this was a winner. This course, I got to write this one down. Good thing I already did.
Throw that one in with some of our best. Ray 19, congratulations, Ray. Send us an email, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. Let me know your size. We'll make sure we've got it in and find a time for you to come by and pick it up. All right, let's see where everybody finished today. We had that top 10. Beyond the top 10, Corey O was right there. Bridget, Phyllis and Bridget dominating today, both in the top 12. Larry TSG in 13. There's Granny Bomber Fan, 16. Gintelligence, I always like that one. Chucker, Winnipeg Chaster, B. Henderson. Who else do we have here? There's Kabilis in 31st, Royal Sports. Keep her going. I'm just looking for Hustler or Bozeman. Who's going to be first? Tristan Rivers Music. There he is. Robert Swanson, Tango. T-Will. Not too bad, T-Will, today. There's Jano. Doug Zapp. Fort Garry Q, always in there. Duck Dad, what's up? Another lock shopper. Mark M. Fanasuk, another lock shopper. We got some picks. All right, geez, we're taking our time here with
oh, sorry.
My marble. Oh, geez. Hustler out. Damn it, I didn't finish. Probably Bozeman not there as well. Going through the rest of the list of everyone that did or did not make it. Man, I guess that, you know what, I think everyone got whacked. Oh, poor Bones. Everyone got whacked by the fire today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because it wasn't like everyone was falling out. It was that they were they got eaten up by the fire at the end. I don't know. They didn't give us enough time to have everyone set through. Anyways, they're the final results, everybody. A DNF for yours truly today. Congratulations if you did finish, and thanks again for being with us today. What do you got on for the weekend, Reem? It's a little different now without the Jets playing. The schedule's a little more wide open.
What do I have? I think I got a barbecue Saturday. It's barbecue season. My wife's doing the physio fit run tomorrow, and a bunch of Mother's Day celebrations on Sunday. So reminder, it is Mother's Day. Shout out to all the mothers out there. Yeah, reminder, Huss.
Well, and listen, let's give a WST happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers, to my mother, to your mother,
yes,
to Leah, who's a mother, and all of the moms that are in the chat. Guys, don't forget about the moms this weekend. Is Mother's Day earlier this year than it normally is? It seems early. Or maybe I'm just out to lunch.
That's a good question. Maybe.
Sometimes the way the calendar...
May 12 is Sunday. I don't know. When is it usually?
I guess it is sort of early.
The second Sunday of May. So I guess because May 1 wasn't a Wednesday. No, I think this is when it usually is. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, moms are the best. We appreciate you all. Gang, have a great weekend. As I said, we'll be watching the playoffs. Blue Bomber camp underway. Hammer on Monday will be great. He'll have more on this Chad Kelly situation for sure. And then we'll dive into some of the top Bomber stories and then get into everything happening in the Stanley Cup playoffs. See whether there's any news percolating around the Winnipeg Jets head coaching search and get going on all of that. Thanks to all of our sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Thank you to the podcast listeners, and thanks to everyone on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already on the way out. And we'll see you on Monday, 1 p.m. live on YouTube right here on WST. Have a great one, everyone. Enjoy what should be a beauty.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.